No, I get them from Kim, so I don't care who you give it to. Yeah, usually. Oh, no. Let's go.
We got a minute.
Shuttleworth, I like mine. Oh, council member Pierce, mine just says Shuttleworth.
No explanation.
Of course not. Trouble ahead. Jerry and Red.
Hey, I'm telling you, you and Joanne shacking up together and like
Jerry and Red.
until 6.
Pinky in the brain.
All right, folks, we'll get ready in 1 minute. We'll give anybody else out there.
Mayor, before we start, I'd at least like to say thank you
Yes,
to
sir.
all the residents that are here and for all those that are live streaming us. If you can see this, please let us know. If not, let us know that as well. And thanks
Right on.
again.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order tonight. Welcome, everybody. Beautiful day on the island. We're all happy to be here. Thank you all for coming out. We'll begin with Pastor Danny Keck, who will give us the invocation. Pastor, please. Followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much, and as always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here, and I love coming up this way. There's just a really brief story I want from the Old Testament from 1 Kings. King Solomon, the greatest king Israel ever had. He became king, and he asked God God told him, ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And this is what he prayed for. He said, God, so give your servant a discerning heart and to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? And that is my same prayer for you folks to, as we move forward in this great community and, just lifting up prayers for you, for your guidance and for wisdom to make the great decisions for this community. Let us pray. Gracious God, this town is such a blessing to so many. Lord, we pray for guidance and wisdom and inspiration for the leadership of our town of Carolina Beach, who makes decisions that will have positive impacts on the residents and the visitors who are here. Lord, continue to bless them, surround them with your presence, inspire them with your spirit. This we pray through Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, with that, I make a motion to adopt the agenda this evening. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The consent agenda. I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we have some special presentations. Employee recognition. Jeremy, are you, or is this Ed? Ed first? Yes.
Got a couple. We'll start with Brenda Butler. So Brenda has been with the town of Carolina Beach for 15 years. And she started out as our in mapping and GIS. We hired her on, and was responsible for putting a lot of our infrastructure and town assets into an electronic system where we could better manage them for the community. And a lot of you probably know her as well. We had a need in several years after she started to manage events in Carolina Beach, and she took over that as well. And then recently, she also took over management of our, we went to an automated permitting process, and she's taken that over too and has done a great job with all of them. It's been a pleasure having her for 15 years and I hope for many more. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Brenda. We appreciate everything you do.
Brenda, when do you take that cast?
Good one, Brenda.
Oh, it's off. Oh, it's, good. Okay, the club's gone, all right.
Thanks for rocking for us.
And I've got one more, Mr. Jerry Hare. And this says 5 years of service with the town, but Jerry actually started with us 2010, I believe, and was a contract employee for around 3 years before we hired him full-time. In the early 2000s, we saw a lot of communities around us getting projects and moving their communities forward, and we couldn't seem to get the grant money and get things moving. And we brought him on as a contract, and we started getting projects, started moving forward, and we're like, hey, we need to get this guy full-time. So we were able to get him on, and since we've gotten Jerry here, you've probably seen a lot of changes in Carolina Beach, and he brought millions of dollars into the island for improvements. So it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we have you a long time.
Good
Thanks,
job,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Jerry.
much.
All right, at this point, is there a Jason? I hope I'm not ruining your name. Well, I'll just go with Jason. Is it
Mayor,
Clam?
Mayor,
We got one more.
we have one more.
There's
Chief.
another one?
Yes,
There is indeed.
Chief Spivey.
Chief Spivey.
He does.
He just wants to work hard.
You're good. Mayor, council, thank you for allowing us to do this presentation tonight. We have a special presentation, actually two presentations for what we can now refer to as Detective Casals. She has finished a grueling training for a little over a year, intensive training for intelligence analysis. And now she takes our data and our crimes and our information and puts it together for space and time and hopefully forecasting and predictability. So if she can come up and grab her detective's badge, I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
And also we have, which doesn't come easy, I think we're talking about years of education, 11 years of law enforcement, hundreds and hundreds of hours of training. She has been presented by the state of North Carolina with the Training and Standards Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tess.
Detective, way to go.
Appreciate you keeping us safe. And for our citizens, I guess you can tell from the presentations tonight, we have excellent staff in our community and our town hall. So if you see them, thank them.
I'm worried about the intelligence part that she's going to start an
I'm not worried.
Wiretapping? I just know it.
Tess, that's great. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason Clam,
That's great.
please.
Good evening. My name is Jason Clam, and I am a member next door here at Carolina Beach Presbyterian Church. And I have with me a few representatives from our youth programs. We have Hannah and Brady, who's walking around behind me, Eli and Jackson, and we are excited to be here tonight to make a presentation of our from our event, the Super Bowl of Caring. As everyone knows, the Super Bowl is a time when a lot of people eat a lot of food. There was a church in South Carolina who began a program many years ago to remember the people who don't have as much as we do during this time. And so they started a collection on Super Bowl Sunday, and that has now grown across the country to literally thousands of churches who do collections on that day to give to the hungry and to the needy in their communities. We also did that and are proud to bring to our own Carolina Beach Help Center a check tonight for $703.
Wow. Thank you guys for your community service.
All right, at this time, we're going to take a look at the events calendar with Ms. Brenda Butler.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, and Council. I'm going to be briefing on the March and April events. And the March events, this Saturday will be the Low Tide Run. It will start, they will sign up at the gazebo. The 10K will start at 8 a.m. and the 5K starts at 8:30 a.m. And then on Saturday, the 24th, Tony Savani Parade, and it's going to be at 3rd Street and Cape Fear is where the parade will start. And it's from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And Tony was a member of the USA team that won the ISA World Longboard Surfing Championship gold medal. In April, I did just get an event, and it is not on your calendar and not on this calendar, but I did get a new event today that I want to make sure everybody knows about. And the first one is the Community Easter Sunrise Service. It's going to be Sunday, April 1st from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. And it is all denominations. And if you have a chance to go to the sunrise service, it is a beautiful event. Public Safety Day is Saturday, the 7th at Fort Fisher from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And our police department puts on that event for the Safety Day. Beach Bacon and Beer Fest. Saturday, the 14th at the lake from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. This is presented by the Chamber. And you must come out. It's the first annual Beach Bacon and Beer Fest, so it should be interesting. Tinted Turtle Trot is Sunday, the 15th at Mike Chapel Park from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the Tinted Turtle Trot is where, they throw the color on everybody, which is a real fun time. And then Senior Day is Sunday, the 22nd, at the boardwalk on the beach from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that is done by Kevin Murphy with Ocean Rescue. And that's just a day that he gets all the seniors out there and teaches them to surf or helps them surf, him and his team. And here's the Low Tide 5K run. And they have this map on their website. And this is the Low Tide 10K route. And this map is also on their website. And then this is the Island Montessori School 1 mile 5K color run. And I'm sure this will be on their website also. And if there are any questions, I'm available, and you can always reach me at this number or this email.
Brenda, when was the Island Montessori? What was that date?
That is Sunday, the 15th.
Okay, and that's.
Of April.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And the sunrise service is on the
April
Oceanfront Boardwalk.
1st, and it's on the
boardwalk.
Oceanfront Boardwalk.
Brenda, besides reaching out to you, where else could residents go to get this information for all 5 of these events?
They can get it on our website. We have the calendar on there, and I am in the process of updating the event calendar this year on our website. It has not been updated for this year, but I'm getting there to get that updated. And on that website, if you go on to all of our calendars, there'll be if you want to know more about the event, there'll be a contact number there for the event.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Busy couple of months.
Yeah. It's starting.
Okay, at this point in time, I would like to make a motion to open the session for public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We've got 2 folks who have signed up. We're going to address the nonprofits when we get to the public hearings. So Kathleen Griffin, if you're here, you'd like to come and... No comment? Okay, very well. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to come and present or discuss with council? Ma'am? You can, yeah,
Friends of
you
Feline.
you can discuss it now, or you can hear it, or you can present when we move into public hearings. That's, okay, very well. Miles?
Evening. Miles Bielik, 633 Spencer Farlow. Just wanted to ask council to reconsider the ban on, quote, pets at the boardwalk area year-round. Seems to me that might be a little overbearing and very difficult to enforce. During the time we've had the shop down there, we get quite a few people in the off-season, particularly in the winter. Town residents, some visitors alike, who will walk their dogs down to be able to go out onto the beach, primarily because the animals are allowed on the beach. And with the majority of the public parking being available right there at the boardwalk, it seems a little of a bit of a conflict there that they're allowed to take the animals out on the beach, but they're not allowed to walk the animal through the boardwalk area to get onto the beach. As well, I just don't see there being a real issue during the off-season with animals being allowed down at the boardwalk. So I just ask that maybe y'all take the time, take a look at that ordinance, maybe consider some tweaks. We get plenty of people down at the store that come in with their animals. I believe Councilman Shuttleworth was in the store one day when we had some customers in with their animals. We welcome them.
I thought you were going to say with his dog.
No, he just happened to be in the store at the same
On a
time.
leash.
But I mean, we even go as far as to have dog treats in the store for the animals that come in. We have some regular customers that bring their dogs in all the time. I know one of the other businesses down there actually does an ice cream treat specifically for dogs. So I just think that maybe I'd take a look at that and consider tweaking it a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Miles.
Thanks, Miles. We've been tweaking that for
By the
about
way-
5 years now.
By the way, I'll mention, I'm not a dog owner, okay? So I just think it would be smart to
Cat,
take a look at it.
chickens.
All right. Very well. Anybody else? Okay, with that,
Before you close that, I would like to recommend that during this public comment session, we always enjoy hearing from residents. So this is one of the reasons that we speak about this, to try to get more people in here. So if there's something you feel passionate about that you want to bring up to us, now's that time to speak about it. The more
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
have this involved, the more we can have you guys involved and engaged. So if there's anybody you meet out there that says that there's something they just feel that they want to get off their chest, or they just need to chat about, or they have ideas how we can make this island progressive, anything that you think about, this is that moment that it's about the residents. So you can always come up to the podium, introduce yourself, say your address, and speak your piece for a few minutes. We highly encourage this. For those of you that are live streaming this, I welcome you to workshops, to these meetings, and as well as to anybody who's here with us. This is the only way that we're going to get better and to better our community with one another, is that you step up and speak with us. So with that, if you have ideas, come on up. Or
Right.
thoughts or
This
comments.
is why we do this early.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Patricia Jones, Carolina Beach. We have before you quite a few agenda items. Many of them are focused on locally owned small businesses. I sat through the Tony Savani itinerant merchant for years. One of the things that we failed to recognize, possibly, was the fact that here was a local small business owner. And what's the opposite side of that? If we aren't encouraging, to the best of our abilities, small businesses, locally owned businesses, we're going to end up with more and more of these box chain stores, which we're seeing. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out because each of the items that we're going to discuss tonight involves a local small business. And I just wanted to, I woke up thinking about that. I don't want another Wings or another, I'd much rather have Tony or something like that. So,
Right
Thanks,
on, thank
Patricia.
you.
Yes. Thanks, Patricia.
Come on up.
Come on.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Morales. I live Carolina Beach, near the lake. And I was just wondering, there's a lot of pollution around the lake. And I was wondering how often they will clean that. There's cans, bottles, pails, bags. It's really polluted. So I was just curious.
I think that's a
how often
Mr.
it gets
Kramer
cleaned.
question.
Yeah, I'm looking over at the town manager.
Typically during the summer,
Just once?
typically during the summer, they're out there on a daily basis, trying to pick up in areas around the garbage cans and so forth. When it comes to the water itself, we do have a boat and we go out there usually on a weekly basis trying to take care of the algae and things like that, and that's the same
Yeah,
time
the
that we
algae's
pick up a lot of the garbage and things that are in there.
So it won't be till summer?
No, they should be starting up pretty soon here.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Appreciate you bringing that up.
Jeanette, one thing I would recommend is if you notice that and you see it anywhere, reach out to the town. Typically, the employees are really quick to try to be reactive. If not, you can always reach out to one of us.
Or send an email or something like that. That's great. We appreciate that.
If not, I'll go down there and help out.
And at a workshop upcoming, I want to, more broadly speak, and talk about the lake, the dredging, what we intend to do. I don't want to get on a sidebar here, but as it relates to your concerns about the lake, how it smells and how it looks, I want to do a deep dive on the lake itself, to dredge or not to dredge. That is the question, maybe. All right. Anybody else in the public comment section? See, that wasn't so hard. Okay. If there's nobody else, I'll make a motion to close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And to open the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And we begin with nonprofit requests.
Yes, sir. Mayor, council, the first item on tonight's public hearing agenda is the nonprofit requests for funding from the general fund. Last month, we heard from the groups who are interested in getting funds from our ROT or room occupancy tax funds, and that was Pleasure Island Chamber of Commerce and also CBDI. This month, we have, let's see here, 7 or 8 of our local nonprofits, and typically, if they're able to, they can come up and give a brief introduction to what they're requesting from the council. Council doesn't have to vote on anything tonight. That'll be part of the budget process. When we go through our budget workshops, you'll vote and discuss which items to go in. And
if there's an adjustment on, I'm sorry, if there's an adjustment on any of the numbers, that happens in the budget process?
Yes, it does. That's correct. So I think the first one that I saw in the office or in the audience was Paul Laird from the Friends of Fort Fisher.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. I am Paul Laird with the Friends of Fort Fisher, And I would also like to acknowledge my board chairman, Mr. John Coble. John. And we're here this evening to thank council for your support and to answer any questions you may have concerning our request for assistance for our public education and educational programming at Fort Fisher. Of course, with your support, all of our roughly 30 annual programs are family-oriented and are free to everyone. We expect another record year of attendance at Fort Fisher. Already this fiscal year, our visitation is up 8% as of the end of January over the same period last year. Total attendance for our Junior Reserve Program and lecture series this past year was 8,500, with another 5,600 for our January anniversary program and another 4,500 for our Fall World War II program. With your help, we expect to serve even more visitors this coming year. And I'll leave it at that and just entertain any questions that you may have concerning our public programming at Fort Fisher. Thank you very much.
You guys do a great job down there, Paul.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you have a bunch of changes going on down there this year? I
We
mean,
weren't gonna let
tried
you
to
go
get
that
out
easy.
without that, but since we have the public here, we should probably, can you just give us a little synopsis?
Yeah, so the
'Cause
public will know what's going on.
We've been working for the last several years to position ourselves to construct a new visitor center and museum and to reconstruct some of the earthworks at Fort Fisher. We are inadequate, to say the least, when it comes to being able to accommodate the crowds that visit the site. School groups, other groups, just families in general. We have no rental spaces. We have no multi-purpose spaces. We simply cannot take care of the numbers. And we had over 835,000 visitors this past year. And if we're, as I mentioned just a moment ago, if we're on track with our anticipated growth for this year, we're going to be up to about 847,000 is our projected visitation this year. Having said that, we have received some planning monies from the state legislature, followed up by some additional funding from the legislature, $5 million, through the efforts of State Representative Ted Davis and Cultural Resources Secretary Susie Hamilton. Where we are at this point is we've completed the advanced planning. Those documents have, as of last week, been submitted to the Office of State Construction for their review and comment. When those come back, and we're told that there is such a backlog of projects that state construction is looking at now, that it will probably be anywhere from 45 to 60 days. We'll move into pre-construction, schematic design, all of that on the building. We're talking about a 22,000 square foot facility with all these other amenities that I mentioned, multi-purpose spaces, workshops, classroom spaces, a new orientation hall, just a beautiful new facility. We've got some artist renderings that we're preparing right now because, as you know, with the legislature, they like to see, and I don't like this term, but this is the term that we keep hearing over and over again. They like to see how much skin is in the game when it comes to the local community and to the local partners, of which Friends of Fort Fisher is their local nonprofit partner. So we have been doing a self-assessment with Capital Development Services out of Winston-Salem for the past 3.5 to 4 months. We've completed that part of our assessment, and we are now positioned to get into a planning phase for launching a capital campaign this fall. We don't know precisely what the goal of that dollar-wise will be until we get through with the diagrams, the schematics, all of that, exactly what it's going to be. We're told that the state would like for us to assume the responsibility for fabricating, working with the exhibit design firms to fabricate and install new exhibits in the museum. We're looking at somewhere it could be anywhere from $2.5 million to $3.5 million. So that's the kind of commitment we'll be going to the community, local business, foundations, you name it. We'll be tapping on your doors come the fall. But that's the kind of good faith the legislature expects to see in the communities across the state these days for these kinds of capital projects that bring hundreds of thousands of visitors in, and hopefully will be of great benefit to Carolina Beach. So we appreciate all that you do to support us down there. The programming is, again, that's one thing we feel very good in being a sponsor and a partner with you guys in doing. None of that money goes for salaries. All of it goes strictly for programming, program materials. We do use it for stipends, for bringing speakers in, that kind of thing for the lecture series. Other than that, you know, it's just been a wonderful relationship, particularly with town staff. Every time we've ever asked for any assistance, they have been right there on the spot. So anything that we can do to further that partnership, and if you want to get into the deep dive on the lake later, we're talking with Mr. Kramer about some ideas there as well. So again, thanks for your support, and I took up way too much time. You ask a simple question, you never get a simple answer.
Paul,
Thank you.
hey, Paul, before you leave, I think it's important to note that this past year you guys were ranked in one of the top 10 visitor locations in North Carolina.
Absolutely.
So our residents, when they see that price tag, that's one of the things that they should understand, that your numbers are growing exponentially, where it's a huge focal point for North Carolina as well as us. Thank you.
Councilman, thank you for pointing that out and reminding us of that.
I thought it was awesome.
We're always in the top 1 or 2
Yep.
in terms of attractions in the state.
Yeah.
We were in the top 10 in terms of small Civil War museums in the nation. And that is just amazing considering how inadequate a facility it really is. So the new facility, in terms of bricks and mortar construction, estimates that we've gotten recently are about $13 million, exclusive of the $2.5 to $3.5 million that we will have to raise for exhibit fabrication and installation. So it's a hefty project, but we think that it'll be well worth it for the community. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate it.
Yep, proud member.
The next I'm sorry, the next speaker is Francis Massey with the Island of Lights. Okay, you're not Francis.
Oh, my goodness. Island Lights called in the big guns.
Hi, I'm Teresa Klontz. Can you hear me? I'm Teresa Klontz, and this is Debbie Sullivan, and we're with the Island of Lights. Frances couldn't be here tonight, so she sent us in her absence. First of all, we'd like to thank the town of Carolina Beach and all the employees, the fire department, the police department, for helping with our activities. As you know, we're the Christmas Committee of Carolina Beach. Starting the night after Thanksgiving, we light up the island, and we keep rocking till New Year's Eve. So tonight, we come before you, and we ask for our, I think you donate $8,000 to us every year. My treasurer here has the numbers.
That's correct.
And she's going to share the numbers with how we spend the money that you give us.
Okay, what really is where we need the money is for obviously New Year's Eve. That's probably the biggest ticket item. What we submitted only had the 2017 expenditures for the New Year's Eve, and it's actually more like $6,400 in the negative. Also, the other thing, the light up the lake costs a significant amount of money. Without doing anything but ornaments last year, it was only $1,000. We're talking about spending $3,500 for the lake this year. So that would be a deficit of $3,500. And then for the flotilla, which brings in a lot of business to the community, that's also, it is always in the negative, and this time it was $2,000. So hence why we're looking for some money for those events.
And I'd also like to remind all you guys that this year for the tour of homes, we are seeking.
Councilman Shuttleworth volunteered for that, right?
Council Shuttle.
He told me that as well.
We'll be looking for you.
His wife
and,
did.
Mr. Bridgers.
Well, and you know, I want to commend you guys on, you reinvented the flotilla and the home tour, and they were wonderful events. They've always been wonderful events, but they were so much better this year, and we really appreciate you guys stepping up to the plate on that.
We're a small committee.
We're a small committee of about 10 women, and a couple of guys have joined. So we're always seeking nominations for new membership. But like I said, we couldn't do it without the town's help, so.
So, my understanding, I think somebody had said that this year you were shooting to strive for a Guinness World Record of number of lights. Is that correct?
Well, you know what, each year we do add to the number of lights, and this year we're buying a couple of new displays. And we're buying more bows. Last year, we only had enough bows to cover half of the tree, which was, you know, we want to do better. So this year, we're ordering twice as many bows.
Rock on.
And then, of course, we've got, you know, at the light up at the lake, we have Santa and refreshments. We provide refreshments for all the families that come in because it's at an awkward time between after work, but yet before dinner.
You know, Teresa, we've worked hard over the last couple of years coordinating with you folks and the CBDI, the Downtown Initiative, when we handed that whole program over to the Parks Department. So I think you're going to hear some things coming out of the parks to maybe get with y'all and get some more assistance from the town. Michael doesn't know it yet, but we're probably going to ask for some assistance for you guys on some decorations and some of the lights on the street lights, and just do a whole bunch of things. The Marketing and Advertising Committee has been asking, and I think they've got some ideas they want to bring, and they need some help from you. And I'm sure that there's some new volunteers headed for your committee.
Good. Well, you know, I just returned from Gatlinburg, and the Christmas display
Steve
there
did
is
talk about that the other day.
phenomenal. And I'd like to see bigger, nicer displays all over town, you know. And I think, yeah, if we want to double that 8,000, these displays, I mean.
She doesn't mind asking for money.
These displays, some of these displays are $8,000 and $10,000 and bulk. I mean, so, you know, the 8,000 you give us just keeps our events going, you know, so we could all work together for more money for bigger displays. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And that's a huge off-season event while you're waiting on your next person. That does bring people to our community, that increases our visitations.
Next one is Saving Animals During Disasters and Friends of Felines. I think, Jeannie?
Hi, you guys.
Good
Some
evening.
of you I don't know.
Hi, Jeannie.
I'm Jeannie Mintz with Saving Animals During Disasters. This is Joey Needham, and she has Friends of Felines, which is our feral cat organization. We have asked for, as a lot of the other islands do, and they do the same thing, for $3,000 again to control the feral cats on the island. And by doing this, we fix everybody, vaccinate everybody, and they can't reproduce. So therefore, we've been able to keep these colonies down as to where, when we started this years ago, there were cats every darn where. I mean, everywhere. You cannot even begin to imagine. So as it's gone on through the years now, you don't see dead cats on the highway. You're not getting a lot of complaints about feral cats. But at the same time, we do not want to get rid of all of them because we have a huge rat problem on the island if you don't have the feral cats, and a snake problem. So, of course, the feral cats, they do their part. We try to do our part to maintain them. So basically, all we're asking for this year is the very same thing that we ask for every year. It's the same $3,000. We will, of course, way overmatch that out of our funds because $3,000 don't go very far at all when it's coming to paying for this kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to let, the other thing is I'm going to finally slow up and start retiring a little bit and surprise everybody. So instead of y'all working directly with Saving Animals, you will now work directly with Joey, with Friends of Felines. Joey lives over by the bridge. Denise lives across the way here. And of course, I'll be here forever probably. But it would be nice if I could slow up just a little bit. So therefore, Joey can give you all the, and we will, if anybody will ever get that lake finished, we will look into doing Salty Paws Festival again. But it takes every bit of that space, and, you know, I don't want to spend all that money to start on it and then find out going into September we don't have anywhere to go, because that's a lot of money I have to put out up front, and I don't want to lose it. So there's one thing. But Joey will give you all the figures. She handles all that part, and I'll wait, and if you have any more questions for me, I'll answer them. Go ahead, Joey.
I'm Joey Needham, Friends of Felines. I gave you guys a little brochure so you have some information about us. We are what we call a trap, spay or neuter, vaccinate, and return program for feral cats. Feral meaning wild, the ones that are like on the boardwalk, which I love the boardwalk, and I wish I could take my dog also to the boardwalk, by the way. And we have feral cats down there. There's feral cats literally all over the island. And like Jeannie said, when we started this, I started back in 1999. There were probably 100 cats on the boardwalk. Now, I think down around Loretta's, there's probably only about 15 or so, and some of those are about 12 years old, so they're not going to be around too much longer anyway, but they're getting older, and they're not reproducing. The only thing we have problems with is when people bring them to the island, unfortunately, from Wilmington, because I do work trailer parks and things like that in Wilmington. And I had one gentleman from one of the parks say, well, I didn't want to take them to Animal Services because I didn't want them to be killed, so I took them across the bridge. So we're trying to educate people not to do that and not to bring them here, because we don't want to add to your problem, because it's really adding to mine, because I'm the one who goes out and fixes them anyway. But we're asking for the $3,000. You guys have given it to us before, and we really super appreciate it. And because we see so many other groups that are so worthy. I mean, we all love Christmas. We love the boardwalk. We love Fort Fisher. I love Fort Fisher. I've been down many times. So I know it's a lot of a competition here, but we try to do our part by helping the animals and not having the cats reproduce, and to help also individuals who are caring for these cats, who a lot of times can't afford to really do that once they get out of hand. So we like to keep them at as I call, a dull roar. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything. If you have any questions about what a feral cat is, or where they are on the island, where we've worked, if anything like that.
I do. If the public notices some feral cats, can they call you and you'll come trap them?
We
And
have a hotline number. We also have an email address. We prefer email. And what happens is that if you're capable of trapping, we loan you the traps and the carriers, and we ask you to trap and transport. Some are to a local veterinarian here, some are right across the bridge, and we ask you to do it. If you cannot trap for some reason, if you do not have a car, if you are just disabled, then we will come out and try and help and do it for you, because we have helped several people on the island who can't do it. But we all work full-time jobs. Denise is over here. As a matter of
see.
fact, we were trapping off of Waterview right before I came, and I kind of smell a little bit like tuna fish, so I apologize. But we were trying to trap some of the cats over there so that we could get them off, one of them is a female, and we're trying to get her. But if you cannot do it yourself, we will be happy to help.
so for the public, I'm sure Michael has that contact information. They can call Town Hall and get their
Or
number.
you can Google us. I mean, Friends of
Gotcha.
Felines, it's at friendsofelines@aol.com, or we have our hotline number. You can look on our website, you can look on our Facebook page. We're all over the place.
Okay, thank
And a
you.
lot of the veterinarians know who we are because we do use them, and they can get a hold of us too that way. So, any other questions?
No, thanks.
No?
Thanks, Joey.
Thank
Leah,
y'all.
one thing I do want to say, you talk about what do they do? First thing, before they call us, they need to look, see if one of the ears has been tipped.
Right.
I got you.
We have done one heck of a job on this island. So I dare say probably at least 75% of them,
Oh, yeah.
at least
And the
75%
tipped ear is like
is
it's
tipped.
usually the left ear, not the right, and here's the tip of a normal cat's ear. It's cut.
Thank you for explaining that.
Straight
Okay.
across. And it's usually the left ear, every once in a while, because when they're under anesthesia, someone will tip the wrong ears, which the clinic that we had on Sunday, someone tipped the right ear. And I said, don't worry about it. So just kind of to see which one. It's not a notch in the ear, like where it's if it's in a fight, or it's not a curvy thing or anything like that. It's usually straight across. Okay?
Great information.
And the
Thank
one
you.
other thing I wanted to tell y'all too before we leave is that if you miss 1 year, that's 1 year we're set back all over again, and it's going to cost twice as much.
Yeah, because the litters are
So,
really bigger.
yeah, so please, whatever you do, keep this program going, because this is what's made it work out so good all this time. Okay?
Yeah, and couple other comments. Last year, we kind of do a little bit of tracking to see about litters and litter size. We've noticed in the last couple of years, litter sizes have gone from 4 kittens to 5 as an average. And unfortunately, of those 4 of the 5 kittens, 3 to 4 in the last 3 years have been females, which that makes it 10 times worse. So I don't know why the ratio is going up. I don't know, but I just know that the ratio is going up because we do tracking. So
Thank you very
Okay,
much, guys.
appreciate it.
Guys, one more thing I want to say real quick before I leave. I don't know if y'all have heard, but I'm getting calls about coyotes over at the park area, which of course we know we got tons of coyotes over there. But I've been getting calls about people that are walking the park trail down there by the river. And like one man told me the other day that he had 2 large dogs, one running loose, one on a leash. And the large dog was the only thing that kept the coyote. There were 3 coyotes, and the only thing that kept the coyotes away from the dog on the leash because the other big dog kept running through and scattering them. So, you know, you might want to keep an eye out for that because that seems to be becoming a real problem over there. I do think we'll have to go to coyote hunting one way or the other sooner or later, just as we'll have to go with alligator hunting. It's just going to be too much. But I just wanted to tell y'all about these are the calls that I'm getting, okay? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jeannie.
Next group is the Federal Point Historic Preservation Society and Darlene Bright.
Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Darlene Bright, and I'm here on behalf of the Federal Point Historic Preservation Society. And we are requesting funds for the operation of the History Center, which is a function of our society. We're located right next door, and we invite all of you and everyone here to come and visit us. We're open every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday from 10 to 4. We have a meeting every 3rd Monday of the month where we bring in speakers from all over the state to speak on historic subjects and for the area. And it's all free to the public. And we usually have an attendance of about 35 to 40 members average, and that's been consistent throughout the years. We formed in March of 1994, and it was for the purpose of bringing persons together that were interested in the presentation and preservation of the rich history of this area. Some of the things we have a lot of outreach in the community. We're planning this summer for a walking tour on the boardwalk, a guided tour, and also we're in partnership, I guess, with the town on the J. Ryder Lewis Civil War Park, which is across the road. And that's another thing that's high on our list. So I just hope that you'll consider this. And if you have any questions, I would like to thank you all for your past support, and we look forward to your continued support. So, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Love your newsletter.
Very nice.
Yeah, we
Lots of
do
good
put
stuff.
out a monthly newsletter. And
Thank
we do
you.
have a very good website if you'd like to visit that. It's one of the best in the whole country, I think.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Okay, next is Pleasure Island Sea Turtle Project.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I am Nancy Basavny, and I'm in charge of the Pleasure Island Sea Turtle Project for Carolina Beach. I've actually held a state permit to take care of our turtles for 15 years, and our project has actually had a long-standing relationship with the town even before that. So we appreciate all the support and the help that the town has given us. For our mayor and our newer council member, just a quick run through of what we do. Starting May 1st, we're out there doing patrol every single morning, looking for the turtle tracks. We mark the nest, and my volunteers take over. Each nest has a nest leader that babies that nest until long after it's hatched. 3 days after it hatches, we do an excavation, so we see it through start to finish. We do everything having to do with turtles on this island, including strandings. Live strandings, we transport up to the Sea Turtle Hospital in Topsail Beach. So your funding goes toward our patrol vehicle and all the stakes and gloves. We put black silk fencing around the nest to help with lighting issues and just other various supplies. So we really appreciate the relationship we've had with the town. We had some excitement last summer. We had the first green turtle that ever nested in Carolina Beach. We usually have loggerheads, and we actually had 2 nests laid by the same turtle, so that was kind of exciting. But our project is always at the ready. Something new and different happens every summer, and our volunteers are just great at stepping up and handling everything. But I mainly am here if you guys have any questions for me whatsoever.
Nancy, I had one. We get a lot of requests from people to, during the summer, to understand what the program is. I mean, a lot of visitors, a lot of residents, and do you have a web page that puts out where the nests are so that there's a map so people know, A, to avoid them, and B, what the time is for the gestation and hatching? Because there's a lot of tourism related to the tourism, to the turtle nesting. And so is there something we can do to be more public about and more transparent about where they're nesting and what they're doing?
The problem with revealing the nest locations is safety and security of the
You know,
nest.
they do it at Bald Head.
Yeah,
And they do it all over other communities. So I'm trying to understand why, if we're always saying it's a security issue, how they get other communities do it. So we have people that come and they're always saying, hey, where are the nests at? And it's like a secret. And we don't, I mean, for us to, I'd like you guys to really work on trying to come up with a way to do that. I understand the security, but they do it, like I said, on Bald Head, they do $10 million a year in tourism-related turtle program.
Exactly. Yeah, they're structured a little bit differently than us. They've got interns that work there all summer. We just don't quite have the manpower to lead the tours and do the things that they do. We do turtle talks every week during the summer, so we do have that the tourists can come to. Those are given at the state park every Wednesday night. So we do that. Our website has tons of information, and I'll be glad to maybe discuss more with you about our nest locations. That's just something we've never done in the past. We have had one nest get poached. And the problem with telling people where a nest is and how far the gestation is, that they know exactly where it is and when they can go poach it. Because the nests are, at certain times, the poaching is better than others. But if there's a way that you guys can make me feel comfortable about doing that, I'll be happy to work with you.
Yeah,
on that.
Nancy, we can work on that. And I have had people come up and ask, hey, how do I volunteer?
Yes, we have, and we have a Facebook page. Our website is seaturtleproject.org, and then our Facebook is Pleasure Island Sea Turtle Project. And we've got an event up there right now, which is our volunteer orientation. It's taking place next Tuesday at Minnie Evans Auditorium at 6:30. So this is where 6 o'clock for new people, 6:30 for the returning. Thanks, Tom. So that's your chance to sign up and become a volunteer. We do that once a year.
And for the public, you have to go to that orientation.
You have to go to that
volunteer.
orientation to be a volunteer.
And just a question, a couple times you and I have talked, and you were full with volunteers. Are you still full? Do you have openings if new people want to participate?
Yeah, we have a ton of people come to this orientation, and they're very interested. And out of that, if I can get a handful that really want to get in there and do the work and come back year after year, that's great. So out of every orientation, I definitely call a few really good, loyal volunteers out of it. A lot of people are in it just to see a nest hatch. That's just human nature.
And that's
But
okay too, because they've been educated on what to do and what not to do.
Exactly, and that's the purpose of orientation, is to explain what we're about, how to behave at the nest, and just the general guidelines.
Well, we
So-
appreciate all you do.
That's
It's a great program. We appreciate all you do. And
Oh, thank you.
Just trying to get it as more public. So, I mean, as we have more and more people here on the island, more and more people, it's important that we try and communicate with them what's going on.
Yep, I definitely understand. Thank you.
Nancy, just a random question. Where's Bald Head get their interns from? Is it the local community colleges at UNCW?
UNCW, the Cape Fear Marine Science Program.
Have you guys ever thought about possibly opening up a partnership with them?
We are just not set up to handle interns. Their interns live there on the island all summer, in special housing. And we're, to be such a large group, we're pretty grassroots when it comes to that sort of thing. So we're just not really set up to have interns.
And are you 100% volunteer?
We're 100% volunteer.
So just for the
even me.
public, these guys have really been doing their homework and doing their jobs, and you have a lot of documentation to
Oh,
do.
yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. So like I said, even I'm a volunteer.
And it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun too. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Any more questions? All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Nancy. Thanks.
Not sure if we have anybody here from Katie Behind Senior Center. Okay. Carolina Beach Inlet Association. All right. That is all of the nonprofits that we have that have requested funds so far this year.
Would anybody else like to speak on behalf of any of the applicants? No? Okay, at this point in time, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And moving on to new business. Jeremy's got a presentation on a text amendment to Chapter 14, Article 7, Section 14 and 18. Create an allowance for a commercial pedal vehicle that would allow the consumption of alcohol. The applicant is Tina Bell, Pleasure Island Peddler LLC.
Before you move forward with that, aren't we still in public hearing?
Yes,
So
we
we
are.
don't need to close that.
I think he was opening and closing the first one. Is that
Opening
correct?
and closing the first one, right, for the nonprofits.
So you're going to now hear a presentation on
And
the
then
second item?
open for this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This is a application that you heard last month from the applicant Tina Bell to operate a commercial pedal vehicle to amend the town code to create an allowance of this type of use. Their business we call the Pleasure Island Coastal Cruiser. Some of the trade names for this type of use are cycle pub, trolley pub, beer pipe, bike, pedal crawler. And I wanted to just clarify in the ordinance where this would be located for the proposed amendment. And in our town code, we have right-of-way allowances or allowances for uses that are occurring on town area, public property. It's just like vending, ice cream trucks, taxi cabs, pedicabs, rickshaws, private bus services, and this would fall in line with those types of uses that are occurring within the street right-of-way, a commercial pedal vehicle, versus private property land use allowances specifically for zoning. And for zoning purposes, there's categories that segment where uses can go within the town. It separates residential, commercial, industrial, institutional. And within those uses, you could have something that an applicant would apply for a permit, such as a single-family home that staff could approve. There's other uses, such as a large hotel or a shopping center, but because of the nature of the impacts, would need to go in front of town council for a public hearing. Much less like the right-of-way allowances, a permit, if it's approved by staff or town council, it's really up to council what that approval process is. For example, a taxi cab would just be approved by staff. If it's a private bus service, the ordinance currently states that the route must be approved by town council. Based off concerns that staff heard last month, we're recommending for commercial pedal vehicles, if approved, to be that process that council would need to approve the application to address things such as where's the route going, how are the stops, and people are unloading and unloading, where are they occurring? So some of the other concerns that staff heard were safety. And within the ordinance, we went back and added in, as far as the vehicle and equipment standards, that to regulate the tires must be in good condition, must have an operational horn, must have brakes, shall be equipped with headlights, tail lights, turn signals, similar to just like we do for golf carts, and shall be equipped with at least a fixed operational mirror as well. And lay out the inspections. And any time that a police officer finds that the commercial pedal vehicle is not meeting these safety standards, then it will be immediately ordered out of service. Other concerns that we heard were the limited number of permits. Staff is proposing 2 permits for a commercial pedal vehicle that would be authorized by town council. Each permit entity would be issued by town council only allows 1 vehicle to operate, and the same applicant or business entity shall not receive more than 1 permit. Another issue was how fares will be collected, and that's within the application process for an applicant proposal to address the schedule of operations showing the time of arrival, departure from terminal, intermediate points, and days of service, and how fares are to be collected. Staff is recommending the specific route stipulations. And one is the primary location of the business passenger meeting area loading vehicle storage shall be located on private property in a designated approved area. And what that means is it shouldn't happen in a public space or at the marina or at the foot of Cape Fear Boulevard, where in summer these areas are in high demand and high traffic areas. So we wouldn't want a business operation to be clogging and taking up that space while they're waiting on customers to arrive or going over safety standards or making sure everybody has a waiver. The other one is no commercial pedal vehicle operation shall load or unload passengers in the right-of-way except in a designated on-street parking space that will not in any way impede or interfere with the orderly flow of traffic on the streets. And this means if, for example, if they're going to Fat Pelican and they were just going to pull and park in the middle of Lake Park Boulevard, would not be allowed. But they could, if there was a parking space open, would have to pull in and then they could unload their passengers. The other item was commercial pedal vehicles shall not drive on any of the following areas except to cross at controlled intersections. And this would be Dow Road, North and South Lake Park Boulevard. And we also heard to limit them in the R2 and R3 zoned areas, with the exception of major corridors with Harper Avenue and Cape Fear Boulevard. Now, this is an applicant's amendment. This is staff's recommendation. But what the applicant would like you to consider tonight is if any of these following operational safety requirements could be modified by town council under the review of a permit application approval that would come before town council. So any of these would be subject to change. Now, staff is recommending more of a hard and fast, saying specifically these are not allowed. The applicant would like a little bit more flexibility when reviewing each application. You have a couple of options. You could approve the ordinance, you could deny the ordinance outright, nothing would change within the code, or you could modify the proposed amendment. And again, the current ordinance would allow for the consumption of alcohol for this type of operation. And now answer any questions that you may have.
Jeremy, is this a one-year permit?
It is, and we did add, the initial approval would be by town council, and then the annual permit would be issued by staff as long as nothing has changed from that council approval.
And just for my recollection, I thought that when we issued a town permit, if we cited violations within the ordinance, whether it be 2 or 3, I can't remember what it was, then that was a revocation of the permit. Do you remember what that is?
Currently, for our beach services permits, yes, we do have that stipulation. And what Jeremy's suggesting is that council would approve the first application for the applicant. After that, if there aren't any violations or any changes to the route or anything that council deemed necessary, then staff would re-up that application.
They wouldn't come back to council.
Right, but if there was a violation or something of that nature, then that permit could be revoked and they would have to come back to council to get it reinstated.
So it would kind of be up to staff to decide if they wanted to renew the permit or send it back to council if there were violations.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Mayor, the applicant is also here tonight, and they would like to present to council as well.
Jeremy's getting the presentation for us ready. My name's Matt Hamlet, and this is Tina Bell. We both live in Carolina Beach, right off of Snapper Lane and Ocean Boulevard for both of us. We're neighbors, and we wanted to bring something to the island that was different, something that would draw tourism and locals alike to see the attractions that we have to offer, and also to learn more about the island, to show what the history local attractions, and just features people might not see in their everyday life. Sometimes you bypass these things because you don't know it because you have your normal routine.
We just came back this past weekend from Nashville where we were trained on the Pedal Pub by owners of the Pedal Pub in Nashville, Tennessee, where they have actively around 30 bikes throughout the downtown Nashville area. So it was a great breeding ground for us to train on.
Right, so with the 30 bikes they have there, the thing we kind of want to emphasize is how much Nashville, the city, has really embraced this attraction and the feature. They feel that the Pedal Pub business there with 30 bikes going around throughout the downtown area with hundreds and thousands of cars driving through every day, these bikes do not impede the traffic. They bring the tourists something they can see and safely travel around, and it brings a stream of revenue for local businesses alike. Each person's usually spending about $50 a person outside of the actual tour costs in local business, and then that's on top of the money they spend when they leave and come back home for other ventures within the area. I think what we want to do tonight is just try to go over some of the safety concerns, address what the vehicle has to offer, things that we heard last time that were brought up that we really couldn't resolve at that point. So we just wanted to go over those features today.
So the Pedal Pub was actually started back in 2017. There's roughly 50 locations throughout I'm sorry, 2007. It's 50 locations nationally. They just recently opened one in London, in Canada. There's 150 pedal bikes throughout the U.S. on the roads right now. And the licensee operation has had one accident in the last 10 plus years. There's been over 300,000 tours with the Pedal Pub licensees. That one incident that took place was a driver who did not have passengers on an incline, taking a curve that was not even part of the route and was not supposed to be on that.
Right. And the reason we chose the Pedal Pub company as a licensee for them is because they're the most popular one and they have the most locations in the entire country. We didn't want to take a venture like this on and try to wing it by ourselves. We didn't want to go buy a bike and just try to make up how this venture should work. We wanted to go somewhere that was tried and true, has 10 years of experience, and their numbers right now will go from 50 to roughly 60 to 70 at the end of this year because they have more licensees coming on board.
You guys talk up a little more in the microphone.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So the actual Pedal Pub, these are some specs for it. It's about close to 18 feet long. It's a little over 7 feet wide and 8 foot 10 inches tall, weighing roughly 2,000 pounds. People kind of compare it to maybe an SUV, about the size of that. There are, on the one we were looking to get, it can hold 15 people, 12 pedalers, and 3 passengers that don't pedal, that could sit in the bench seat in the back or on stationary seats that don't have pedals. The safety features that are incorporated within the Pedal Pub are all the safety, they address all the safety concerns the council mentioned last month. These come from headlights, taillights, mirrors, bells, turn signals, and everything that would be featured in a golf cart or mainly a car. Things that might not have would be a windshield wiper, but we don't have a windshield, so that wouldn't be necessary. But any kind of safety concern you would have with those types of items will be a part of the Pedal Pub we are buying.
Some of the other facts that we wanted to share with you is in the presentation that we'll be doing at a later date, we will make sure that we have the approved loading and unloading designated in the business presentation with the local businesses and the town council's approval. That's mapped out on the 32-page document that we presented last month. We have our route selection created to minimize time on Lake Park Boulevard, but Lake Park Boulevard is necessary for us to be a viable business, so that we ask based on the route that we will present to you. We did take into consideration and have worked very tightly with the community to set up a minimized route there. The bike is electric assist, and it will be utilized. All drivers are trained. The ABC training licensee will focus on what to look for on IDs, whether they're fake IDs, how to handle a drunk passenger, what to do, what steps to take, who to call, things like that. Those are things that we will be putting all of our employees through. No alcohol is going to be sold on our bike. Passengers can bring up to 3 drinks, which was stated in the ordinance. And all passengers must sign a waiver prior to attending our tours that we do here on the island. And finally, the pedal pub meets the vehicle and equipment standards that's designated in the current ordinance that's being presented.
So this is a general overview of our safety certification program that Tina and I have to go through over the weekend when we went to Nashville, plus all of our employees will actually go through it. And it basically is a manual that we receive. We'll walk them through everything from before the tour, the safety aspects they need to go through. During the tour, that would be things from handling passengers' behavior to your loading and offloading of passengers. And the last one would be the post-tour, making sure everything is on the bike has been reviewed and maintenance, there's no maintenance issues for the next morning. So like I said, each captain will actually go through and have to take care of that once they are employed. So we had, for this month, we just had a quick summary for you, because I know next month will be more in depth. But we do want to emphasize that we're not trying to bring a business that some people perceive as a party bike. We want this to be something that families can ride on, that we can have field trips do this. We've already spoken with the state park. They've agreed, and they're actually very interested in us coming there to do state park tours where they have a guide meet us at certain locations where we can have children come on field trips. We can have people come for coffee and donuts in the morning and take them out. So we really want to bypass that that stigma that a lot of people have with these pedal bicycles. We want people to have fun on them. Yes, at night there'll be people riding on it, and we'll stop at different locations and attractions in the town, but that's not all we're going to offer. And we want the community to understand, because Tina and I do live here. We are part of this town. Anything we do that's going to disrupt this town is going to reflect badly on us and on our community. And we want to make sure that the town sees that we're not coming in from out of state trying to open something up just to make a profit.
It's our dream to break away from corporate America and have a small business here in the community.
And I appreciate your efforts. I guess the one thing I've been looking, I'm sorry I couldn't meet with you this week, but I've been studying this issue and looking at the various sites. Nashville, I looked at their sites, Charlotte, Durham, Raleigh, Asheville. And it seems that all of the pedal pubs that they have, it's mainly you've got either an hour and a half or 2-hour tour, and you go to different places. Right now, we're looking at not letting you go on Dow Road or Lake Park. I don't see how you can do what you need to do to make, because they were charging anywhere from $37 a person or $4.25 for the whole crew, and you had to load up on a private. Most of them, had a hotel maybe that they would load up, and they would stop there. But some of the places that, or even a pub crawl. But a pub crawl, I don't know how you're going to get to some of these places. With my golf cart, I know how hard it is not to go on Lake Park.
Mayor-
Tom, I think we're about to get some clarity from our town attorney.
Oh, I was just going to remind council that tonight this is about whether or not a text amendment should be approved that would allow any pedal vehicle to operate in the town. This isn't about a specific business plan or a specific presenter, with much respect to these individuals.
The only thing that I would bring up is, Tom, is if you look at paragraph 4, the last sentence says that there's a possibility the town can waive this. So it's not that we're telling that it's not feasible, but that is something they are asking for. So that last sentence does say there's a possibility we could waive that.
What I'm trying to say is they don't want us to restrict them. And what I'm saying is, we've heard from Police Advisory and some of the other groups that have reviewed this in town.
Did we hear from Police Advisory?
We don't do that.
I didn't know we heard from Police
I
Advisory.
know they did present to the police advisory, and they made some suggestions, but I don't think they said we approve or disapprove.
That's correct.
Approve or disapprove, but they did have concerns about going on certain.
Right, and I think when they get done with their presentation, we may have some discussion about the actual applicant. Am I correct?
Well, there's also, there is no discussion about the applicant tonight. This is a public hearing. It is a text amendment as to whether or not to allow these types of vehicles or pedicabs or pedal cars, there are various names for them, here in Carolina Beach. And Jeremy can address staff's recommendations and why they've drafted the ordinance, why they have.
Because to Tom's question, I get what he's saying. Why are we presenting an ordinance that they can't possibly meet? I hear what he's saying. you know.
I
But
think
go
in
ahead.
the ordinance that was presented, it has the option for the route to be dependent upon the town's approval. That was a stipulation that he had drafted in it, so that's, because our business is only viable upon the usage of certain parts of Lake Park, things like that. And
So what you're saying is, as the applicant or the person making the application, you would like us to review that, the text amendment to include Lake Park or have some variance?
Right.
Okay.
Once that comes up.
No, I think what you're asking for is yeah, sort of.
We'll have some discussion, I'm sure.
Okay.
No questions.
Are there any questions for Jeremy, council?
Oh, I'm sure I'm going to have some questions. I just don't have any
We're
questions
just gonna
for
let these
Matt and
guys sit.
Tina.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
I
thank
think
you.
their
Thanks, guys.
presentation was
Thank
good.
you,
Mayor,
guys.
you-
Back to the
Thank you, guys.
text
Thank
amendment
you.
for a moment.
Mayor, you might want to open the public hearing, let everybody.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
comments or
okay.
and then let Jeremy.
Yeah, motion to open the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, folks. Remember when you come up, if you come up, try to keep it 3 to 4 minutes. State your name and your address, please.
Timer.
Patricia
I got it right here.
Jones,
Don't worry about me and the
612
time.
Carolina Beach Ave, North. I'm asking the town to take a very serious stance on awareness of pedestrians, bicycles, and businesses like this. If we don't allow them on Lake Park Boulevard, then where? Because we wanted to keep them out of our residential. And I think that taking a stance on slowing the traffic down, one more time, month after month, you'll hear me say that, I'm in favor of, I think it would send a message that we are serious about you're not going to come flying through our town. You're going to come through, you're going to take your time, you're going to ride on a pedal pub, possibly, enjoy some of the offers that we have other than just come, driving through as fast as you can to get where you want to go and running it's not even safe to ride your bicycle on Lake Park Boulevard. So I think that if we start to offer more in there and get people more aware of how busy that road is, then I think it's a benefit. Versus the opposite side of it, where we had thought first, well, oh, you're going to slow us all down. You're going to be blocking our traffic. We're going to have to. I think it's a good thing that we, that they come here thinking and knowing that this is a busy little town. It's not a fast-paced Lake Park Boulevard. And I don't even like Dow Road being that fast-paced, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia.
Kathleen Giffen, 927 Coast Walk. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think it might be a good thing to bring it to the community. However, before it is decided, I would really like to see a route where they would be going and how it's going to impact the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
And to your comment, ma'am, I think that might be part of the plan to have a route presented before there's a permit issued.
Case by case.
Hey, Fred, we approved a bid for Cape Fear
Yeah.
bike. I just want to make sure you saw that in the,
Thank you, sir.
no problem.
Mr. Mayor?
Just want to make sure.
Uh,
Didn't want to miss a chance.
my-
Jerry's worked really hard on that, Fred, and you ask every month, so I just want to make sure that you knew we approved
Yes,
that.
sir. Well, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
My concern is, I don't really think it's a bad idea, really. I think it's a good idea. I do think that the speed limit, I noticed on your chart doing the R3 Harper and Cape Field, is 35. Most of our town is 25. I think if you want to put something like that on those two streets, the speed limit ought to be lowered to 25. Yeah, so you might want to look at that. I mean, I know my wife is going to kill me when I get home.
'Cause you
she
live
likes
on
the
that street,
35.
right?
She wants 35, and I said. well,
She's
kind of-
changing the
And
locks
she's
now,
listening.
Fred.
With the
She's
new bike
changing the
path
locks
coming,
now.
with the new bike path coming and all, and more and more people are going to be using the street, I think if we lower it to 25, I think it'd be a good thing. Okay?
Thanks, Fred.
Thanks, Fred. Slow down, right, Patricia? Slow down and enjoy the island. Is that a theme I'm hearing?
Fred, you're one more back.
Let us know if you need somewhere to sleep.
He's meeting new friends.
Leave a trail of breadcrumbs next time, Fred.
My name is Kelly Wyckoff, 204 Peninsula Drive. I'll definitely ditto what Patricia said about slowing things down. We can always take a pause, I think, especially during our high season. I'm also a small business owner. I own Taste Buds Popcorn. I think it would be an opportunity to get people to come down here for a new reason. And I think as a small business owner and as council city, we always need new, fresh things to keep bringing people here. You know, extending our business season beyond summer so that we can kind of keep those revenues up if we have one more reason that's going to bring people down. And I think this is a great idea. And again, I've participated. I've seen them work in other communities. It's not necessarily a party pub. I think the idea of doing tours, informational, giving people an opportunity with families to see the historical parts of the island and other streets where they probably wouldn't normally be. So I'm definitely in favor.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Mark Miller, 702 Seafarer Drive, Carolina Beach. I think it's a great idea. Keep it on the east side of the island. If you could keep them off of Dow Road, would be nice. Lake Park, that's where the tourists come to, like, drive up and down and sightsee and all this, and our only escape off the island, especially when it's busy, is Dow Road. So the locals know to get on Dow Road to get out of here, and if they want to sightsee, they do Lake Park, and we try not to let the tourists know about Dow Road. So, but yeah, I think it's a pretty cool idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Okay. Council, do we have questions for Jeremy? Yeah. Motion to close the public hearing. Thanks, Tom.
Aye.
Aye.
Favor?
Aye.
Yep. Motion passes. Questions for Jeremy? And so there are none.
I had a couple. I mean,
yeah,
we must have questions.
I was
just
waiting for
trying
you
Come
to,
on now.
I was just going to wait for you to start.
I was just going to let Joanne. We were going to work and let
Joanne, not Joanne.
I said,
Oh, God.
that's all right.
Be
It's-
roommates here in a few
It's
next
Shuttlesworth,
week.
so it's all right. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thanks,
Go ahead,
Stefan.
No problem.
Can't
Conan,
wait to drive with you to DC.
I'm ready. I got music all picked out.
Woohoo.
Okay, you too.
Uh,
Go
The
ahead,
first
Steve.
question is,
Joanne.
why restrict it from Lake Park? If we are looking to be a bicycle-friendly, golf cart-friendly neighborhood, as well as a community, and we are slowing our speeds down, it's hard seeing that the town would be so restrictive on taking Lake Park out of the situation.
Or recommending.
Yeah, or recommending.
Council decides, town recommends.
Yeah, staff's concerned, that is our thoroughfare through town, whether you're leaving by boat or by bridge. That's the only way. And for this type of operation on that street, considering that this is a 16-passenger, slow-moving, open-air vehicle with the consumption of alcohol, planning staff talked to our public safety officials, and that is our recommendation to stay off of Lake Park Boulevard.
So mine is not so much a question for Jeremy as it is a point of conversation for council. I certainly think we need to keep off of Dow Road. I mean, we've kind of had that struggle. I was disappointed to see that we did not include either Cape Fear or Harper as one of the accesses back. I know there's a business, you know, they're trying to get to and stay off of Dow Road, but would allow them to get back towards Dow Road.
Mr. Shuttleworth?
Did I
What
miss
it-
that?
Yeah,
Because
they
I'm-
What
did
it
allow,
actually-
there was an exception for that.
What it actually says is that you would want to restrict it in R2 and R3,
Well-
but allow it on Harper Avenue and Cape Fear Boulevard.
And
because
so when I'm reading that, I did not see that. When I read number 4 here on the text amendment, it says staff recommends, so at least on the write-up.
Actual draft ordinance on page
Well,
149.
that's the
of
legalese. That's so boring to read. I just read the staff write-up. You got me. Okay, so
On page
good.
149 of the
149,
packet, at
thank
the
you,
bottom of
Madam
the
Attorney.
page,
Thank you.
there is section
Go ahead with-
11,
with your
which
point.
Jeremy may want to explain, because it sounds like some of your questions are arising from the applicant's request versus staff's recommendation. Jeremy, do you want to explain section 11?
Let me pull up the ordinance.
It's the bottom of page 149, the top of page 150.
Okay, I got it. 13, actually. It's 13. Okay. So then I would look at the Lake Park, and I'd be willing to have a discussion for limited access on Lake Park in certain areas, just subject to a map, subject to a route.
Right.
So I'd be willing to look at a route specific in future license applications.
I think staff has done a good job with this ordinance, but I don't think anybody could make a business out of what's in the ordinance. But, so I think what you might be suggesting is something like a CUP or some kind of approval by council of the actual routes.
It is, the process as defined in the ordinance is that somebody would apply, they would fill out paperwork for an application to operate this and to receive a permit. They would bring to council a number of things. They would have to go through staff and show that they meet the requirements, and then they would come to council, and one of the things that they have to provide is a proposed route. So that would get council's approval for the issuance of the permit. And if you didn't approve of their route, then you wouldn't issue the permit.
So we could make an exception if they were going to cross a certain block of Lake Park on one of the tours.
And so my suggestion would be to take item 13B and similar to C, just say North and South Lake Park Boulevard as approved on a specific route map by council, or
So-
with the exception, or some language in there. Otherwise, what we're setting up is you're setting up.
Failure.
Well, you're setting up an application that comes in and has to ask for an exception,
That's right.
right? They're immediately asking for an exception, and that bar is always harder to get to. So if you have some limited review ahead of time, I don't think I could go from the bridge to Curie Beach on Lake Park. I do understand some of that, but
No, and part of it's because, it is our main artery, and I would love to have this business be here, but I've got some concerns with Lake Park. Where they're gonna have to travel is where we've got right downtown, there's 4 lanes. We had a road diet that just shrank it to 2, and suddenly it was like a disaster.
right.
They're essentially gonna take one lane out if they're there.
A golf cart does the exact same thing. You have to go into the next lane to bypass a golf cart.
And that would be my point.
Average golf
too.
cart goes 15 miles an hour. That goes 10 miles an hour.
Well, I've seen 10, I saw 6 on one of the sites.
I guess what I'm just saying is there's certain short sections of Lake Park that I could envision being okay with. This
Others
is
an
personally,
issue.
rather than just carte blanche saying you can go from one end to the other. I would- I
In
would
the
rather
spirit
have-
of the text amendment, like, it just as with Steve and Joe Dan said, I don't like that omission of Lake Park personally. We're assuming that an applicant's, the speed of the applicant's trolley, bike, pedal, pub, whatever you want to call it, is going to be something far less than a golf cart rather, or a low-speed vehicle. That's an assumption we can't make, I believe, in an ordinance.
Well, unless we
No,
make
because
the,
we know what the speed of this one is, but we don't know what other applicants will bring to us.
I think they
So I
said,
don't,
All of them are basically 10 or less miles per hour.
or 15?
well, they're 15 under motor.
You haven't been to Nashville then, Tom?
Well,
I haven't. I've just
I think
And
we
I
could
have.
make the restriction that if it was on Lake Park, it would have to be under,
Motor assist.
motor assist.
Or something
Which
that
is
just
15.
allows for a limited, subject to
Usage and
a map
locations.
review. I'm just saying, bring us a map in the future, rather than from the
Start off with
get-go
the
saying no. I would be willing to say, with limited availability to North and South Lake Park, subject to a specific route.
So what the ordinance says now is that they have to propose a route and they have to come to council. Unless council waives it, they cannot operate on Dow Road, North and South Lake Park Boulevard, an R2 and R3 zoned area, with the exception of Harper Avenue and Cape Fear Boulevard. So staff, based on the police advisory committee, and I don't know, the police chief is here, he may want to weigh in, but they.
Or not.
Or not. They're giving the council the ability to waive those restrictions.
And I would rather, and I appreciate the fact that you can waive it, but having had some experience in those presentations and watching how things work, it's easier to restrict something than it is to waive or make the exception. I don't know, it is somewhat semantics. There's clearly the ability of council in the future
I
to say,
agree.
no, that's fine, you can do whatever you want on that section of Lake Park.
So, and if we do that and we approve a certain route, and let's say we only want it to go 1 block to the very next available street, and they are consistently going 3 or 4 blocks, that's a violation, which we discussed earlier. If you get, I don't know, maybe we need to have that, but if you violate so many times, then you lose your permit. I know we've put that in before. That holds people a little bit, holds their feet to the fire on that presentation. But also, if they change the route and start a new route, does that mean they have to go back to council with that new route? Yes. Okay.
The one thing I'd like to point out is that we don't, it would be a complaint driven.
That's
How
right.
would we would discover that they're going further than they're supposed
Well,
to?
you'll know.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, sometimes, but, I don't know, it's, the council will have to vote on it, but I think it's, something, to ignore the staff's recommendation is something that I wouldn't take lightly.
I say omit line item B from 13. Me personally, I understand that everyone feels that they should only have segments of North and South Lake Park. However, again, when you move here, it's that chill out, relax, take your time, and speed always seems to be such an issue to everybody.
Well,
I
and
understand that-
I appreciate that, Joe Dan, and I
300,000
appreciate people
tours and
wanting
no
people to slow
incidences.
down, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, we do have speed limits, we do have traffic, we do have people that want to come and go. There's a balance there. I would have concern if we're dramatically impeding the traffic flow on Lake Park.
Do golf carts
I
dramatically
said,
impede Lake
w-
Park?
I do not see where this would be that dramatic problem, but I'm saying I don't, just to come out, as much as I appreciate everyone, the comments about wanting to slow down, I like people to slow down too. However,
Human nature.
it is, we have a speed limit. So we do have 4 lanes in a majority of Lake Park. There are certain sections down by the lake where it gets to 1, and I'm sure this applicant is going to ask for some relief south, or a future license application may see for some relief south of there a little bit. I'm just willing to leave B in there with some kind of ability with limited access, rather than just saying carte blanche. It's got to be reviewed.
Well,
and
and-
that's where I'm at. Other than that, I'm okay, and I appreciate staff going through the safety items
Yeah.
and reviewing the map.
And we're going to
keeping it
review
out
each
of Route 2.
applicant and look at their routes
Well-
prior to, anyway.
I can tell you, just before you submit a route, I would not be in favor of any distance on Lake Park that's more than a block or so, probably. I mean, you'd have to get off of it at the first opportunity.
Right.
For me,
And I agree with that. There's just 1 or 2 spots, I mean, and having looked at maps that staff had put together and just knowing different places, I mean, there's 1 or 2 that are going to be tough to get to. The Tiki Bar, and
That's
I mean,
right.
we talk about specific businesses. The Tiki Bar's been named one of the
That's
top 10 beach bars in the United States for a couple of years.
and you're probably not going to get there, because then we'd have to give an exception through R3. Was it R3, R2?
Or
You'd
have
have to have another exception.
There's a short route to get there, but it does require a block or 2 on Lake Park.
So we're ultimately restricting an entire portion of the southern side of Lake Park.
Probably.
Well, if you want to get
So
to the
we're-
veggie,
so
well, I mean,
from what-
there's a few, you know, to get to the farmer's market or some things like that. The other thing I would want to see during a license review, the hours of operation and some possible different restrictions or loosening of restrictions in the off-season. And other than that, I'm okay with the ordinance.
And
with
I
the
have another
exception of
question
B.
that's just kind of flowing through my mind here, and let's forget who the applicants are, because it could be somebody else in a year from now. Are we open? Right, that's what I'm saying, just for the public. Forget about, because these are nice people. I've spoke to them many times, and I know they're going to do exactly what they say. But it could be somebody else next year or the year after. And so my thoughts were, we're opening this up to 2 permits. Would the community really be able to deal with 2 pedal cars? And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, and having routes going on at the same time, then you're talking about 2 of them.
It
Just
would
my
be a
thoughts.
wonderful experiment. It's just like the road diet.
I mean, somebody could come in here the month after and apply for the other permit. And
Yes,
then
they
we're,
could.
I mean, and then are we going to allow those to operate? I mean, have we thought about that? Would we allow them to operate at the exact
With the
same
growth
time
rate
with
that
their
these
routes?
pedal cars are having the majority of cities, then I would definitely see that coming again to council, probably within a year or 2.
I mean, I'm wondering if we want to do 2 permits.
I'm
I
still
mean, just
having
my thoughts.
issues with blocking off an entire southern part of Lake Park and restricting a good portion of our town that would have access to what they want to do. It's not just bar hopping, it's seeing our community.
It could be a birthday party. It's not about, it doesn't have to be about drinking. They don't
No,
care
I
if they
totally
drink or not,
understand.
as long as they're buying those seats, you know?
If we think that it's impeding traffic, then again, we must also think that golf carts impede traffic as much as we think this would. Correct?
Correct.
They do.
So you think we should take golf carts off the
I didn't say
streets?
that, no.
Steve?
I didn't say that.
But you think it does?
Yep.
No.
I would completely.
It's just, you asked my personal opinion, yeah, but I'm not asking to take golf
I
carts
agree.
off, but, you know, I see how it changes, and that's okay. My question is, if they're on Cape Fear, do they use the bike trail, or do they use the lane? Huh? Do they use the, well, you laugh, I'm serious, we have a 10-foot
I
bike
did.
trail. Do you get on the bike trail, or do you go down the middle of the street?
No motor vehicles allowed on those.
They're pedaling, it's a bike.
Part of the concern with the Lake Park and Dowell is that those are state roads, and I certainly echo what you said about the speed, but we have had trouble with the DOT allowing us to reduce the speed. We've got 25 in the middle of the town, and we're trying to reduce it on the other side of the bridge just to say, okay, it's gonna be 35. They won't do that.
That's not state property.
Pardon?
That's not state road. Cape Fear is not a state
No,
road.
Lake Park is.
Like, I'm talking to you, but we can change, the town can change the speed limit.
Okay.
We can't change it on Lake Park.
Hey, I'm going to reel this in.
So it comes down to
Final,
13B.
hey, final rounds, I think it
Does
sounds like
anybody have a
we're-
comment? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
no, let me,
On the
I
2
haven't said
permits.
much. Let me, I got the floor now. Does anybody else here have something substantive to offer? I think I've got a pretty good idea. We know where we stand on this.
Yeah, I want some thoughts on the 2 permits. Do you guys think there should be 2 permits?
Why not 7?
Let the market dictate what this town can absorb, I think.
I'm
That's my
perfectly
opinion.
fine with 2.
I'm a market guy too, and I think that the market will dictate whether we could, the town could support 1, 2, or if we get to the point where we did with beach vendors, where all of a sudden we had a request for a 3rd. I get concerned setting up 1 license and then we get accused of protecting a monopoly, and I just don't, that's the only issue I have with 1.
I agree.
Okay, with that, I'm going to read this slow. I'm making a motion to approve. I'm going to go through all this, Noel, just for you. Let's I get this right. Text amendment to Chapter 14, Article 7, Section 14, and Chapter 18. Article 1, to create an allowance for a commercial pedal vehicle that would allow the consumption of alcohol. All those in favor,
Wait a minute.
say aye.
Hang on.
So we're not done chatting, it seems like.
No, I think you made a motion, and now the question would be
Did we not make that
any
exception for Lake
discussion.
Park in your motion?
So now you have the motion, you have discussion, and I would ask you for a friendly amendment to address item 13B,
That's
the
right.
restriction on Lake Park, North and South Lake Park Boulevard.
Did you mean to add that
To
to your motion?
Okay.
strike it.
No,
So
to
you have a
allow-
motion that says you want to approve it the way staff's written, and I'm asking you to amend the motion, item 13B. Commercial pedal vehicles shall not drive on the following areas except to cross at controlled intersections: A, Dow Road; B, North and South Lake Park Boulevard, except as approved on a specific route by council; C, R2 and R3 zoned areas with the exception of Harper Avenue and Cape Fear Boulevard. That would be my amendment to your
And
motion.
Steve, you want to strike 13B?
No, I want to
Not
amend it
strike
just
it,
like I
just
just
amend
said.
it.
He wants
I
to
want to
amend
amend
it
it
to
the way I
include
just
North
read it.
and South Lake, as
Okay.
approved by council.
As approved by council.
North and South Lake Boulevard, as approved by council.
Okay.
I know.
Did
That-
we say that right, Ms. Attorney?
You already have that in the ordinance as it's drafted now, with the following operational safety requirements shall be required unless modified by the town council. So you get to modify 11, 12, and 13 when the applicant comes before you.
So I will withdraw my friendly amendment then. If the council is the third time she has recommended to us that we have the ability to modify it, I'm getting a hint.
Okay.
Shoot for 4.
Slow learner.
Okay, so.
I'm a
re-
slow learner,
learner.
but 3 times I'm
So,
going to get it.
returning to
Can't wait to try it.
my original motion.
I have a question before you vote. Do we need to add, or is that something we can modify upon an applicant about the motorized, whatever, assist, motorized assist on Lake Park? Does that need to be in the ordinance, or is that something we add upon application?
Ed, Jeremy, do you have an opinion on that?
There is an allowance for a motorized assist in the code, but there's not a requirement that you have it in the code.
Would we have to require that if that's our intention?
I think if you want that to be a requirement, you would, yes.
I don't know, do we? I guess before we vote, that's my question. And I did speak to the applicant, and they felt like that was not an issue if, yes, no, to do motorized assist if you went on Lake Park with an exception.
I'm cool without it.
I'm all right doing that at the waiver time.
Yep.
I just feel like that might help some of the public who are not happy with the slow-moving vehicle. That doubles the speed.
I'm just concerned this is a Dutch-built vehicle.
No,
Okay.
That was just my only other
Yep.
question.
He's funnier than Comedy
All right,
Central.
so, returning to the original motion.
So do we add that or not?
Nope.
No,
Do we want to add it?
no,
Nope. Call for the question.
no.
Call for the question.
Questions called. The original motion to approve text amendment to Chapter 14, Article 7, Section 14, and Chapter 18, Article 1, to create an allowance for a commercial pedal vehicle that would allow the consumption of alcohol. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, 5-minute break. Yeah, at 8, yeah. Wasn't me. Yeah. Steve?
So are we not motorized or not? Steve, are you in the hallway out there? I see gray hair.
Hey. Yeah.
I thought I saw him. He's got, thank you, Chief.
Retain him. Boy, you can't leave him alone, can you?
And Mr. Mayor, I
He's
apologize,
talking,
I had my mic off, didn't know it.
Yeah,
was
somebody
off.
texted
Yeah,
that
it was
Tom
off.
could not be heard and his mic was off.
Did they say hallelujah?
I was being ignored.
Which was it?
No, it was Miss Mayor Grady.
I could hear me, but nobody else could hear me.
Had to send a chief after you.
All right.
Okay, we're back in order, and next up, we've got a text amendment to consider, an amendment to Chapter 40, Article 3, to amend the dimensional criteria for accessory structures. The applicant in this case is Planning and Zoning, and Jeremy will present.
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. This is sponsored by our Planning and Zoning Commission. Couple or few months ago, Planning and Zoning Commission made some substantial recommendations to our accessory structures. Town Council reviewed those at a workshop, had some concerns. Planning and Zoning went back and scaled back those changes. And what their focus is on this time around is really the height of an accessory structure, how big or large the accessory structure can be, and the setbacks from property lines for an accessory structure. The changes that are not included in this amendment that council had discussions with before were some of the caveats in there to protect the protection of not to be converted into a dwelling unit. And it should not used as a dwelling unit for an accessory structure, could not be occupied, leased, or rented, or otherwise used for profit, and contain no more than 3 internal plumbing fixtures, except for the water heater, and that kind of limits or prevents it from really becoming the dwelling unit. Our current regulation as far as the height is 15 feet. And the recommendation from Planning and Zoning is to change it to 25 feet. And what this accomplishes is it allows you to have a second-story habitable space to meet building code and the roof height. So it's been in the ordinance since the 90s about having the limited height limit for accessory buildings. And a lot of discussion, and even at Planning and Zoning, some of the concerns were that if you allow for 2-story accessory structures, essentially, is that it could be easily converted into a dwelling unit. When you limit the size of the height, you don't have that concern, and it doesn't become essentially becomes a code enforcement issue to make sure that it's not being rented out. The other requirement was the size. The current ordinance regulates that is struck through here it constitutes a proportionate size of the principal structure of the house. An accessory structure can only be 25% footprint of the accessory structure. For instance, if 1,000 square foot footprint for your house, you get 250 square foot for your accessory structure in the current ordinance. The Planning and Zoning is recommending that you could have greater than 25% as long as it was not greater than the principal building, your house's footprint. So it could go up to, in that case, for that example, 1,000 square foot, as long as it does not exceed it. The other governing factor is the lot coverage. Is you only prevent from someone overbuilding on the lot. For zoning purposes, there is a maximum lot coverage of 40% on residential lots. And based off lot size, here's a breakdown. First, it could be 2,000 to 5,000 square feet of buildable area.
So Jeremy, I'm a little thick on this one. What you took out the 25%, it can't be greater than 25% of the principal building's lot. So if you have a 1,500 square foot house footprint, how big of an accessory structure could you have?
So there's 2 factors. As long as you're not bigger than that square footage of your principal building and you don't exceed lot coverage.
So what's the answer?
15, if it's a 1,500 square feet, if it's a big lot.
Right, 1,500.
So just as big as the house.
So as long as you're not.
Covering 40%.
As long as your maximum coverage
What
isn't
was the
more than 40%.
purpose of changing that
Right.
Both buildings.
percentage? I don't get that.
To have a greater accessory structure, a
building?
larger one.
Right.
That could house for,
So
example,
the real goal is not to have a storage building, it's to have,
open it up for more of a
Usable
man cave, she shed, workout area.
She
an
shed?
office.
she said. Thank you for not being
Say
sexy.
that 3 times.
He's waited all week.
You mean
to
a
put that into his
garden?
Presentation. He's waited
You worked on that all week, didn't you? She
That's a
shed.
good one.
Jerry here
You
gave
didn't want
him
to leave
that.
anyone out.
No, I do not have a she shed.
So as long, you're saying it doesn't matter as long as it's not bigger than the primary building and the combination doesn't exceed the maximum allowable lot coverage for that lot size, you don't care how big it is.
That is Planning and Zoning's recommendation.
So it's not really an accessory structure, it's just a second structure.
When you say planning and zoning, do you mean our planning and zoning or our planning department?
Ultimately.
The Planning and Zoning Commission crafted or
So what is our staff?
directed staff to adopt this language.
What is our staff recommendation? Is it the same as planning and zoning or?
Staff had Staff had no qualms with the current code. This was.
I mean, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but we got great planning and zoning, but you guys are the one who are educated on what's good for planning of a community.
Right. The only input we had was from our Planning and Zoning Commission, brought it up, had discussion, and requested these changes for staff to make and bring forward.
Right, so I know that, but I'm asking, what does staff,
Staff-
am I putting them on the
staff
spot,
would
Michael? I just want to know what our
recommend-
staff planning
Staff
is.
would recommend leaving the code as
So
is
you were
written.
happy with the way it was?
Yes, we saw no need to go and make any changes to the code as it stands.
It's very
And-
diplomatic, Ed, I got it.
So can you explain to me, just humor me, what is a fixture? Is a fixture anything that, explain to me what a fixture is.
So it's a plumbing fixture.
So it can be
So-
a shower head, it can be a toilet, a sink.
If
You
water
can have
runs through
three.
it, or, yes.
You can have 3 outside of a hot water heater, so you could have 3 sinks.
Any-
Or a
So you
dishwasher.
could put a shower in the accessory structure.
You could, yes, you
bathroom.
could have a bath, but you
And a
may
bed.
not be able to have a kitchen.
You couldn't have a kitchen because,
That's
It
the
could lend
question.
itself easily to a dwelling unit, is the purpose.
so we're going to run around and make sure someone doesn't slide an electric stove in there?
We would have teeth to enforce that.
I think the fixture part is what limits, what you're saying is that if you don't want anybody living in it, you take out the fixtures.
But once they have the structure, what goes in inside, you're unlikely to find out what it is.
If it does, it becomes an enforcement issue.
The plumbing is a little tougher to slide that in after the fact, because you
Right.
got to do some
That's right.
Lot
structural
of digging,
plumbing work.
yeah.
But when you limit it,
Right.
open it to 3 fixtures, what I like, well, let's let him finish. and
Go
then we
ahead,
can have a-
sorry.
Can I just ask a question for clarification? So if your lot is 7,000 square feet, you can have 2 structures that don't go over 2,800 square feet, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So if your house was 1,400, then your accessory dwelling could be 1,400, as long as it technically wasn't a dwelling.
With planning and zoning's recommended language, that
Technically,
would
yeah.
allow for it.
So you could buy a lot and build 2
But you could have-
structures on it,
You could,
like
yes,
2 units.
no,
I understand what it's not supposed to be.
Right.
But the first thing you said, Jeremy, just to point it out, was that
Exactly.
we're going to allow for a second-story habitable
Habitable.
space.
I heard that.
yes, for your office.
Sure.
But not dwelling.
Or your sheet.
Not your college student.
Or your grandmother.
Now, am I correct that the planning and zoning was a 5-2 vote?
Correct. Yes, and they had, the 2 had concerns that, you know, are you really leading people down a path to break the ordinance?
In the
Correct.
previous photo, it said 15 feet is what we have now, recommending to 25. Are there structures that are 25 that are in violation?
I'm not aware of any existing, code violations that are pending.
Okay.
Right, but we had that a few years ago. I was on planning and zoning where we had the auxiliary structures, and as long as you had a hallway or a covered walkway, it was a mess. But they were allowed to do that. So we do have some 2 structures on some lots
Yes.
now.
And what we did at that time was clarify what a building was.
Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead,
As
Jeremy.
far as a connected structure, so that it wasn't an
Connected structure.
I think
auxiliary
we-
structure, as long as we had some kind of fabricated branch
Right.
wall.
I think we probably do have certain violations around town. There's just not been any complaints about them. And this ordinance probably allows for the open door for more. But go ahead. I just thought.
But this ordinance
We're old,
would
we have to
allow
get it
for
out.
residential
Right, 'cause
use
that photo showed it.
Yes.
of the accessory structure. You could, this would allow for occupation, residential use in a residential accessory building for residential use. According to this, it can't be occupied, leased, rented, or otherwise used for profit, but,
And you
know, the
can't have a
typical
unit in
granny
it.
pod sort of scenario where you put somebody in there, you think,
No, you couldn't have a unit in there. You could have a pool table in there or office space. So you could have,
Pool house.
as long as you don't meet the definition of a unit in our zoning, then yes, you could have some space like that. Pool houses were some a discussion at P and Z as well.
Right, because we have a lot of 2-story pool houses.
What's the difference between a unit and a
Well,
pool
let me
house?
ask, go ahead. Good question.
I don't know.
I don't either. Go ahead. What is? the
Well, a
definition?
unit is when you have separate living quarters, sanitation, cooking, sleeping from your principal dwelling. So if it's separated and there's no interconnectivity, then that becomes a dwelling unit.
Have you had many people ask to have that accessory structure or any applications for it that you had to turn down? Or, I mean, what's driven the accessory structure change?
Time to time, we've had inquiries about, can I do?
I've heard the pool houses.
If maybe it's just something like a mother-in-law suite or something.
Well,
They want to
let's-
have a kitchen and bath.
Let's break that down. How many accessory structures for non-residential, mother-in-laws, occupied residential uses? How many accessory structures have you had come in for an office or your man cave or your pool house versus those that we've had come in that says, I just want to build a garage apartment?
Majority are just used for storage. Is your accessory structure is just a storage building. Few are, they may just want to put a workout room. Every now and then, I mean, it's very low percentage. We get somebody who desires to try to, maybe ask about a dwelling unit.
So it's not broke, but we're going to fix it.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and I think if the other option to me is you take out the plumbing, then go in the house, go to the bathroom, that takes out the possibility that's going to become a rental unit automatically. But that's not the purpose of my guess for wanting to change. Just my thought.
The other recommendation were for setbacks. Currently, for residential accessory structures, there's a 5-foot rear setback, and the side is 7.5, which is the same as the principal structure. Their recommendation is on the side yard is to go 5 to be consistent with the rear yard, but they did realize that, well, for allowing for taller accessory structures, that may impede onto the neighbors. So if it's larger than 15 feet, you would have to meet the setbacks for the principal structure, the requirement, which would be 7.5 feet.
I know what that is. Sorry.
The other just change is accessory structures for institutional uses shall be exempt from the requirements of this section just because of their nature. Government facilities, schools, and churches tend to have multiple accessory structures, so that is a recommendation. And before you have planning and zoning's motion and their recommendation for those approval of those elements of the accessory structure ordinance. And the action being requested is either approval or denial of the ordinance, and a statement providing that the proposed zoning amendment and describing its consistency with the plan, or rejecting the proposed zoning amendment describing its inconsistency with the plan, or a statement approving the proposed amendment and declaring that it also amends the plan. The land use plan doesn't specifically address accessory structures, but it does address specifically density and the number of units in each zoning district within town. And with this amendment, you're not messing with the accessory or the number of dwellings, but the potential is there if you're, for this habitable area, increasing for a second-story accessory structure.
So Jeremy, am I understanding that the two significant changes that are being proposed are going to be the height going up to 25 feet and doing away with the maximum 25% ratio of the primary structure?
Correct.
Those are the two biggest I mean, currently, can you have 3 fixtures currently in the current? You can have 3 fixtures currently in
Up to
your.
3.
Up to 3 in your garage or your outbuilding or your accessory structure today.
Yes, sir.
So we have the same code enforcement problem today if you have a 800 square foot building out behind your primary house and it's 12 or 15 feet high. It's got 3 fixtures. It could be a rental unit.
That was
Is
going
it-
to be directly related to my question. I remember when the gentleman came and he asked to build a pool house, I can't remember, Monroe or somewhere, and how was that allowed?
And that's when we created the 3 plumbing fixtures.
Because he wanted to have a shower.
Yes.
in the
Before
pool
you
house.
couldn't have any of that. It was just storage only.
It wasn't a height issue for him.
No. He wanted to have a bathroom. In his
The pool
case,
house.
he was proposing a workout room.
Weight room.
So a toilet is a fixture, and a sink with the toilet is a fixture.
And then if you have a shower.
Do you have anything else, Jeremy?
No, sir.
Yeah, so enforcement really comes down to construction permits and a building inspection
Yes, and complaints.
and complaints, right? Okay.
I think it goes right back to people saying all the time, when we have trash at Freeman Park, why don't we pick the trash up? Well, why don't people not break the law and not throw out trash? You know, that's the issue we have all over town. People say enforce, enforce, enforce. Well, we can't hire enough people to enforce everything, all the laws that the people break.
Which is the concern I have with the.
Exactly, my
This is going to
concern.
be hard to
I mean,
enforce.
I keep saying to people all the time, they say the town's not enforcing the law. Well, we are. We're doing the best we can do with what we have, but don't break the law. We won't have to enforce it.
Yeah, so you know what? Before we take it too far, I'm going to make a motion to open up the public hearing on this matter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody like to come up and approach? Yes, sir.
I'm Dale Walters on 916 Canal. I think that accessory buildings like this should be minimized in all cases, and anything that would come in here would be a building addition, in particular if somebody wants a man cave or a pool house.
I
think you're opening it up for
She shed.
large-scale boat storage, private paint, motorcycle repair. I mean, there's all kinds of things and hobbies that those things encourage that don't need that size, but the bigger the size, the more activity you get. So,
You mean
my
increase
opinion
square
is-
footage?
Pardon me?
The increased square footage.
Increase square footage. I think
Or
the idea
height.
on these is to reduce them as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I live in R3, single-family dwellings. This is not going to be a single family. Once you put water and showers and commodes and all that into, then people are going to start renting them out, I'm telling you. And then you're going to have a mess. Years ago, at Carolina Beach, you had to have 2 lots to even build them. But we got rid of that because, you know, buildings were coming more and more. Now, we're going to have more density, and then you know what to do with when you do this, so. Okay.
Thanks, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
I can't be all done by Fred. Come on. But not Fred.
So I have 2 issues with it. One, going along with Fred, we have so limited number of lots left. I think it's under 600 lots left in the area. So it will lead to higher density, in my opinion. The other is, I'm just very, very curious, given what all I went through, going through planning and zoning, why would a planning and zoning committee bring up an issue like this? I'm not really sure. And it kind of worries me because I believe that there are some builders on that commission too. And so just to be transparent, maybe we ought to address that because that might come back and bite us a little bit. Or, you know, you had brought that up, Leanne, before about, yes, we like this company, but we don't want to show preference to it. So the same issue there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia.
Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Okay, guess not. So with that, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any other thoughts, council?
No, just my only comment I need to make, like we spoke about short-term rentals in the past, and this doesn't necessarily say that anybody's going to do that, but it could be a long-term rental. And, you know, we have to, I am pro-business, you all know that, but we have to protect our single-family neighborhoods, you know, and this is what that directly affects. That's my concern with this accessory structure. And like that gentleman said back there, you know, increasing the square footage just opens the door to all kinds of different things, and we've allowed it in our ordinance. I don't even really like the plumbing fixture, but I don't think we're going to tackle that today, but it absolutely can go in a 15-foot building and still be around.
Right,
Now
I think
you're
one
making
of,
me want to revisit that.
right. Well, I think one of the things I look at is, what I want this beside my house, and I wouldn't. You know, that would be out of line with what I've got in my yard and the neighbors have, and so I'm not, I don't think that's a good change to make. Plus, we always have problems with, enforcement, and we're just creating an enforcement nightmare if somebody wants to take advantage of the ordinance change. It's going to be hard for our staff to be able to find all the violators if they want to violate it.
When you boil it down, the request is for two substantial changes. One of them is the height. And that's high enough that you could have a second floor. And so my question is, when you have 2 stories and they're finished, that's an awful lot of accessory uses. You know, I can understand if someone wants to have an in-home office and they want to have it out above a garage, that's one thing. But if you just have a structure that's 2 floors finished, it lends to a problem. So I'm a little struggle with the height, but I'm not totally against loosening the height. My biggest concern is the square footage. They already have 3 plumbing fixtures allowed. So you really can't have a bathroom and a kitchen, which gives you a rentable space. I mean, a habitable apartment, typically requires a kitchen sink and some kitchen fixtures, dishwasher maybe or maybe not, but a sink. And then you have a bathroom, and generally it's going to require 3 fixtures itself. So the number of fixtures is already there. My biggest concern is the loosening the 25% going to equal no larger than the same of the primary structure. When you do that, it's not an accessory structure, it's an equal structure. And my experience around the country in observing these is these accessory structures are subordinate to the primary structure, both in look, size, and scope and scale. So I have a problem doing away with that 25%.
Yeah.
That's, the enforcement issue, I do agree. I do not want to see the encroachment into R2 and R3 zones where people are coming in and putting in second units. That's just a bigger discussion the community needs to have. There are many in that neighborhood that said absolutely not. And there are other people, whether they're builders or other people, that want to start thinking about extended family, and extended family just leads to an additional unit somewhere down the road. So I don't know. I mean, I understand what they're asking for. I can't live with the equal size. The square footage is a real problem for me, because then you're just opening it up to.
Yeah, that.
Good portion of
And I
those
agree.
lots are
We
7,000 to 10,000
we have
square feet.
we're about to approve something later tonight about mowing. We're going to make an ordinance or a motion. We're going to talk about enforcing yard mowing. I mean, we have to go to council extremes to get people to mow the yard. Imagine what we're going to have to do to make sure we're enforcing that this is not an apartment.
And I don't and I agree, and I'm a little concerned that we're even hearing it if it's not staff-driven, and I don't see an applicant. So I guess that's my question is, why are we doing this?
I think your
Can I-
P&Z
can I
your
answer
P&Z
that?
folks are seeing this across the country, and it's a little forward-thinking. I get it. And whether it's motivated by,
Michael?
By what?
Just like council, all of our committees have the right and ability to ask staff to bring forward changes to our ordinances. Council does it all the time and asks staff to go and look at a particular issue, and so do all the other
And
commissions.
to comment on that, if I could, I have no problem with the committee bringing something forward, but staff are the people who've been to school and been educated on this, and I'd like to hear their opinion on it, not just bring it up and say, you council vote on it. We're still 5 uneducated people that didn't go to school for planning degrees like you guys did. I mean, I'd like to hear a staff opinion, and I kind of heard you say, because I know you're so non-political, that you were fine with the way it was, but I think staff should make a recommendation one way or another. That's just my personal opinion.
And I think what you heard out of staff was that we saw no reason to change it, and more detriment if we do.
Okay.
Sounds like we're all
No,
in
I get that,
favor
but
to
I even
not-
have a
Yeah.
concern with the plumbing fixtures now, so.
Sounds like we're all in favor
Just
to
saying.
not move forward with this, is what it
Yeah.
sounds like.
So,
Well,
So we take no action.
No action.
Take no action, on to the next item.
okay.
all right. Sounds good.
Yep. Got items of business, I think, Jerry, to present. Adoption of ordinance to amend the capital project ordinance for the Island Greenway project. Sir.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We got an easy one for you. We kind of do, all we're doing is restacking some funds. Ordinance 18-1077 amends our existing capital projects Greenway ordinance for two reasons. One, we got two different grants for the Greenway project. For construction, DOT's required us to track everything separately for the two projects, and that's why we went to bid, and that's all taken care of. So you'll see the budget's broken out into Project E versus L for the expenditures and the revenues. And then the second thing we're doing is, council's aware that over the past year, we've been successful in going back to DOT and the MPO and getting some additional money, and that shows up on this little spreadsheet that was attached. This shows the original E project, which is a grant we got from Mike Chapel Park to Greenville Avenue, and then the L project, Greenville Avenue to Alabama. The number one projects are the original amounts, and then the others are, as listed, are additional monies we receive, or agreements for time extensions, which we've got a couple of those. But anyhow, so we've been successful in getting about $387,000 in additional grant money, and then the corresponding matching funds is shown. And so that would just restack this into the budget ordinance to allow us to track those two projects separately with those additional monies. So recommend approval of ordinance 18-1077. Any questions?
Any questions?
None for me. Council? No? All right, with that,
Well, hold on a second.
oh, sorry, I didn't look to my left.
The budget on this is increased almost $500,000 on this, correct? And,
Almost.
to my understanding, that's because in order to utilize all the funds, is that we have to now upgrade our original plan to meet state standards, correct?
That's true. The two big additional expense things, when we changed the route to the trail around the backside of the pond behind Carolina Sands a couple years ago, we added a pedestrian bridge, and that was about $120,000. Additional design fees, survey fees, all that stuff thrown in. And then we weren't advised up front when we started the whole process in 2013. There's a 15% DOT construction administrative fee. So that's a big chunk of what we've had to go back and ask for more money. So they said, well, you got to have 15% admin fees. We said, okay, well, give us some more money for that. So, and they've been good to work with. So that's accommodating for all that.
And to clarify this for our residents, this is an 80-20 payment plan, correct? We pay
Exactly.
20, they pay 80?
Right.
So out of what this total budget is, I know it looks really high on paper, but in reality, for what the town's paying,
Right.
it's a lot less, correct?
Right.
250, I think?
It's a good deal for us.
20%.
Okay. No questions, thank you.
Just a question for Michael. Are we staying in touch with Matsu about our progress on a regular basis?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And Matsu's been out to inspect the site and the progress of the project, I think 3 times already.
Great.
And we'll do a deep dive, you and I, on the Matsu and other related things tomorrow. Okay.
So make a motion?
Yep, you go ahead, Joe Dan.
Make a
ahead,
motion
Joe.
to adopt an ordinance to amend the capital project ordinance for the Island Greenway project.
All in favor?
Mike?
Aye.
Aye.
That's all?
Thank you.
All right, motion passes.
Additional dollars?
Okay, now how do you want us to, we're moving on to Canal Drive Flooding Committee and Freeman Park Committee approvals. We got our,
I've got mine over
yeah.
there.
So
Yeah.
But before we hand in our, Mr. Shuttleworth?
I had specifically on the Canal Committee, we passed I guess it's an ordinance, we passed a process a month or so ago outlining the structure of that committee, and it called for 7 voting members and 3 at-large members, one of those being staff, one being a council liaison, another being a member of the operations committee, and then 7 voting members. It's been a relatively, I don't want to say hot, but it's been a passionate issue for a number of people on the island to start to address the Canal Drive flooding, and we've had 9 applications, and in reading them, it's really hard to pick 2 that you don't want on the committee. And so I had asked the manager what the possibility would be to enlarge the committee from 7 to 9, so that all those people that expressed an interest, and Michael suggested that that would require exactly what, Michael?
You would need to make a motion to change the bylaws for the Canal Drive Flooding Committee to have 9 voting members instead of 7 voting members. And then if you do that, then you can vote and approve the 9 members.
And that would
you
not
currently
require
have.
another hearing and a delay. We could do that all.
You
Okay.
could do that right now
So
if you'd like,
if it was
yes,
council's
sir.
pleasure, I'd like to make a motion to increase the committee size of the Canal Flooding Committee from 7 to 9 voting members.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Makes the voting easier, Kim.
Yeah. Correct mine. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to adopt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The motion to purchase.
Yeah, I'm reading it,
No,
I'm just not seeing
Freeman
the
Park
words clearly.
Committee.
Park Committee?
Well,
We're waiting on the tally. Can I?
she's
Well,
going to
it's on
tally.
the same thing, she's tallying it.
Well, I could be there for you.
Well, this might be quick. I don't mind, mate.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. One of these days I am.
Again, thanks to all of you that are sitting here with us and watching live stream. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes. We promise we won't be long.
We're ready, Mayor.
You are?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the 3 new members on the Freeman Park Committee are Alex Torres, Brian Graybush, and Keith Blumendale.
Okay.
Okay.
And Alex is here. Congratulations, Alex. Anybody else?
And Brian is.
Ah,
So is Brian.
okay. I didn't.
Brian.
And Brian is.
I got-
Thank you guys for applying.
Yes.
We look
Again, they
for
were-
all the
And,
answers
and-
from
and
you.
thank everybody for applying. Appreciate the civic mindedness.
That was
And
another tough one where there
the
was.
tallies for, I'm
A
kidding.
lot of good applicants.
Everybody's
it's just
on
hard
I
to
know,
do.
that was, I'm being facetious with an F. All right, moving on.
Do we want to name the 9 for the public record and for the
We can
public?
definitely do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, so for the Canal Drive flooding is Bill Skinner, Dale Walters, David Rhyme, Kevin Doval, Gregory Higgins, James Sanderford, Jerry Hall, Robert Gordon, and Stephen Taylor.
All right,
Thank you.
and congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you all, if you're out there listening and
Now the
or
work
watching.
begins.
Right. Appreciate that. And the council liaison?
Oh, you got to ask?
Well, I don't know.
Glutton for
Oh, no, it's all you.
It looks like the majority voted for Mayor Benson.
Oh, did
Was
they?
there
minority
another
vote?
suggestion?
Yeah, I voted for myself.
Should have been
That's
Steve.
That's
I
why
was on
asked.
operations and I was
Yes.
interested in that, so, hey,
Oh,
I
okay.
knew I was
Well,
gonna
you should
lose.
have said something. I would have certainly had you on there.
Steve, you live up there.
I'm going to go anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
It's all you,
Every
Jack.
time? You gonna go to everyone?
Nope.
All right, let's move to
Okay,
the
moving
next.
on. Moving
You
on
boys,
to
you boys hug it out.
Michael?
Next
Please.
item I'm going to present
to talk.
Okay.
in your packet is an offer to purchase and contract for the Lot 6B Freeman Park, Carolina Beach, that was drafted in accordance with the instructions that you gave the town manager for negotiating. We need a motion to approve, and closing will occur as soon as possible.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to adopt, I make a motion to purchase Lot 6 Freeman Park for open space.
Okay, all in favor?
Can we have a discussion?
Well, I thought that was your motion.
That's my motion.
But we
I
can
have
discussion
I do
after
have
the
But
questions.
then generally you'd have a discussion, then call
Is
for
there
a vote.
closing
Right.
cost included in here, or is that in
Yes.
addition?
The terms of the contract as part of their negotiation was that they would net $500,000.
Okay, so there'll be additional closing costs.
There'll be revenue stamps, seller's attorney's fees, deed recording fees.
So it'll be minimal.
Yes, but
So-
no realtor commissions.
And Mr. Mayor, really, it wasn't so much a question or a discussion, it was more of a soapbox statement. I've seen a lot from the community lately about how we're paying for this and what the end game is. And I think it's important for us to convey to the community that these are not local ad valorem tax dollars or county dollars. These are monies coming from fees that were collected from users of the park. So it is strictly a user pay basis. And unfortunately, this particular one was one of the last pieces that had not been purchased by someone that's been buying up property out there. And in the course of that, the price escalated dramatically. But that was at the point where we got it, and we are paying it out of user fees. And I think that's the most important thing I just wanted to convey, so that people don't think we're spending tax dollars on this particular item.
Right, and we do have the money available. We are not taking a loan
Not
for
a
that
general
project.
fund. See, and I wasn't tracking where you were going with that, Steve, but absolutely agree. Completely transparent, this process. Any other comments related?
Well said.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
on the table.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so we're buying open space.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, moving on to non-agenda items. Do I have any non-agenda items?
I just have one recognition that I would like to take a moment and recognize Jeremy for working so hard as our
That's right.
floodplain administrator, director, whatever title we give you when it comes to flooding. You've raised all those houses, you've got those grant dollars, and in the course of all that, you were able to get our community rating number down. And I know it wasn't just you, but you are the lead person in coordinating. And that saved our residents individually a tremendous amount of money.
And we
And we
appreciate it.
that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, and I have one. I've gotten some complaints from restaurant owners on the boardwalk, a few of whom met with Michael and myself last week. They'd like the town to take a look at revisiting the outdoor patio spacing to something closer to 72 inches from what it is today, which I think is 54, to make it a reasonable space for servers to get in and around tables. So would ask that that be something that the town put some time towards.
So you'd like staff to bring back something to council, looking at the changing of all of the seating in the sidewalk cafes, or just a segment?
Those that, right, those that are on the boardwalk facing the beach that don't have buildings on the opposite side. So that where that 52 inches, I think the spirit of the 52 inches came into play.
That's got to be length, right?
Sorry.
It's length? Is it the,
I think
the,
they're talking distance from the
Distance.
building.
Distance from the edge of the building.
Right.
from, okay,
That's how,
okay.
how deep this space is.
You mean, okay, into the, wow, okay.
Yes.
And we can bring that back to you at the next council meeting if you'd like.
Well, and, well, I'll talk about it later. I was just going to ask you, and I talked to Ed about this, if you had done anything with the entryway issues that we talked about. I don't know if Miles is still here, with the slope of the concrete. You know what I'm talking about?
Currently, we're working with the property owner and also the tenant at Frank's Pizza to work with them to change their entry. And the town will end up contracting out for the work, but the property owner and the tenant will end up paying the cost of changing that slope.
And just for the public, I own that building just for transparency, and that's not why I'm asking. We have several buildings down on the boardwalk that there is several inches difference between the sidewalk and the entryway into the building. Are we looking at pouring that ourselves, or having the contractor do it and share that expense with the property owner and the tenant?
It would be the contractor would come and do the work for us. We don't have staff that actually pour concrete and do that type of work. We would have somebody contract that out. And it would be the responsibility for that tenant or property owner.
So it'll be a standardized form for any business that needs that.
It'll be a little bit different for each one because each one of them has a little bit different slope in front of them and so forth.
And there's probably
but
maybe 3 or 4 that have that issue.
yes.
So, Michael, the other follow-up, and I apologize for a second round here. We just approved, I think it was on consent, about the lawn mowing, the grass, right, the length, and having enforcement on that.
We just approved putting a public hearing
Public hearing.
for
You'll hear
next
that.
meeting.
Right, on consent as a public hearing for next
Yes.
meeting.
Right.
So can we add to that, besides just the grass mowing? I mean, we have some code enforcement issues on the boardwalk that just, I mean, we've got a couple of structures down there. I mean, what are we doing to put some teeth in our code enforcement that we've talked about in the past?
Absolutely nothing.
Great.
What
If
part of
you'd
the
like,
boardwalk
we
are
can
you
go and,
talking
and
about?
put that on our list of things to do and bring that back as an item for council if you'd
Well, it
like.
just seems to me if we're worried as much about people mowing their yards, it'd be also important to know that when buildings are falling down and have roof caved in, I mean, so, anyway.
Yeah.
You tell me how you want to deal with that.
If they were life and safety issues, our building inspector would have already addressed them. But if they are minimum code type issues, we can definitely bring back some recommendations for changes to the ordinance to stiffen that up.
Okay.
I do think, though, there's been tremendous improvement on a lot of those buildings down there in the last year or so, and they look, or a couple of years. Unless
have-
you know when you want to make a complaint.
I have 3 non-agenda items.
Okay.
My first one is that as a council, I feel that besides the meetings and the workshops, we don't have time where once a quarter or so we get together and to kind of checks and balances with one another, how we're doing, how you're doing, how we progress. I'd like to possibly see about maybe doing a retreat once every 3 months to make sure we're on the same page, we're still better in the community, building with one another versus just the meetings and workshops and obviously lunches or whatever outside of here. That's the first one. The second one is that we have several boards and committees. However, the chairmen never get together and have their own meetings to make sure everyone's on the same page so that we're for the betterment of the community. So I would like to see that happen maybe once every 6 months if everyone's in agreement. Get the chairman together, maybe a council member or two, just to, Parks and Recs, that goes well with the marina people, that goes with Freeman Park. Like, all these things can work well with one another if they get together and just kind of have their own meeting once every 6 months to make sure they're on the same page for everything for this community. And then the third one was, I would like to see possibly at workshops, all of us are on boards and committees. However, we do not relate to one another what we are learning, what we're discussing, unless we actually take the initiative to go look at the minutes from the meetings that one another is on. So at the workshops, I'd love to see if we actually took time within that to discuss the boards, the meetings that we're on, what we're learning, how we're sharing with one another. That way, all of us are on the same page for the better for our community as well as this county. Thoughts, questions?
Personally, I like it. When you're talking about getting together quarterly, like in a retreat
Like a
type
retreat, yep.
format, like we did in January, Joe, Dan, and we got a lot out of that. We got a lot out of town staff, excellent presentations. Is that, you're envisioning something that's akin to that?
Yep.
Which is about a 4 or 5 hour day to be hosted by.
Time frame we could discuss, we could figure that out, but it's something that I feel it's important not only for us, but for our residents as well.
Well, maybe, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but maybe suggest not a summer meeting, maybe twice a year, maybe before the season and after the season. I'm afraid we might get stuck if we try to meet
Before the
in
season,
summer,
after
too.
season.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, possible.
Yeah, let's take this offline when we're done and maybe propose.
Yep, I like the
dates.
idea of having some kind of committee report at our workshop where everyone just comes back. I could tell you what's going on with a couple of things I'm doing. I'd like to hear about some of the others, and I think getting all the committee chairs together once every couple of months so that they can share ideas from
Yeah, it's not a
the
bad
Ops
idea.
Committee and the Police Advisory and the Harbor and Parks and Recs and Freeman. I think that's a good idea. Having a retreat every few months is a little bit tougher when we start looking at where we've got 2 meetings a month. I'm open to, doing something additional so that we have
Once
an
a quarter.
opportunity to give each other feedback on what we're doing, if we're meeting the goals or Michael's meeting our goals. We could come up with something. Summertime's a little crazy, but You know,
Right.
I remain rigidly flexible.
Well, my non-agenda item is to focus on the operations and what they've done over at the Help Center. If you've not been by the Help Center lately,
Go eat lunch.
on 3rd Street, they have done a wonderful job. They added guttering, they added the front ramp so clients can get in better. They went beyond that when they did the landscaping. They've got a border around it and 2 rain barrels so that it will be, whatever we plant there will be able to be watered naturally. So hopefully they will survive that way. We did have a Eagle Scout that was going to do a project over there, but apparently he didn't stay at it and his deadline passed. So we're looking for anybody else out there. If you know an Eagle Scout that wants to do a project to help beautify the Help Center, get in touch with our town manager. Thank you.
Thanks,
But
Tom.
then-
At this point in time, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session to discuss an attorney-client matter in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A3. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.